Okay, student, good evening. Let's start with today's session. So in my previous two sessions, I have gone through open session where I have discussed a lot of important inputs related to preparation of general studies. In my last class yesterday, I've gone through Indian polity and constitution introductory class. I have shared with you every possible important inputs related to the fact that how you are going to proceed ahead with the Indian polity and constitution preparation. Before I proceed ahead with this session, I guess whosoever students who have joined with me, I guess they are already having this particular content with yours. This content is always going to be there in your study table. I have already sent it out to you, the soft copy of this PDF table. And in this particular soft copy, I have explained it to you, the academic plan as per syllabus. So all important units are being given it to you in this academic plan. Please make sure that it is always going to be there whenever you are going to do academic session with me. And make sure, always make sure that we are going to proceed ahead according to this academic plan itself. Minimize it. Student, let's start with today's session. We are going to start with our academic session itself. So it's going to be first session of ours. Indian Polity Constitution, part of GS paper 2. And this is going to be our class number 1. Always make sure that you are going to follow the classes as per the proper order. Suppose that if you are going to miss certain classes, let's say class number 2, class number 3, then it is going to be there in your mobile app and you can check the code and then you can do the class and can proceed ahead with your academics. So before I start my today's session, and there are certain rules that I want to share with you. Since we are doing online session requires certain rules that need to be followed. Rule number 1. Whatever that I am going to write it onto the whiteboard or to the electronic panel, please write as it is. Whatever that I am going to write. Because those are going to be very essential for your overall note making process. But apart from the writing stuff that I am going to do it over here, I am going to dictate as well. Because please understand, I have seen a lot of students know the subject, but when it comes down to writing the subject, they are very poor and their performance is absolutely shoddy. So what you are supposed to do, you should write the content that I am going to write it. You should understand the content that I am going to explain it to you via monologue. But at the same time, I will make sure that there is going to be a proper note making process of yours. So you should make a note, every possible thing that I am going to dictate it, note it, based upon which it would be very beneficial for you to solve the prelims and mains based question itself. So rule number 1, write. Always have pen and a notebook in front of yours. Whatever that I am going to write it as it is. Number 2, you should make sure whatever that I am going to speak, whatever that I am going to explain, whatever that I am going to propound, you should make sure that the concepts are going to get it clear to you. And rule number 3, whatever that I am going to dictate it to you, like in a normal classroom session in offline, I'm also going to dictate content here as well. So whatever that I'm going to dictate it to you, please make sure that dictation is also going to be there on your notebook, because it is going to act as a very handy stuff for your overall preparation itself. So without wasting any time, let's start with our preparation. So in today's session, I'm starting with the first unit, which is unit number 2. Unit number 1 is all about various different socio-political economic philosophies which are been closely interlinked with the constitution. This is something we'll be going to do later on. But first we'll be going to look into the unit number 2, which is all about concept of constitution. So in today's session, we'll be going to look into concept of constitution. In this concept of constitution, I'll be going to share these inputs with you. तो क्या क्या देखने वाले हैं? Let's look into what all things that we are going to do it over here. First, we will look into the theory, meaning and theory of constitution. First, we will going to look into this one, theory and meaning of constitution. Then we will look into significance of constitution. Why do we need constitution? Then we will look into significance of constitution. Then we will look into theory of constitutionalism. Then we will put our entire energy onto the third part, theory of constitutionalism. After doing theory of constitutionalism, we will look into Dicey's rule of law, doctrine of rule of law. Then we will look into theory of rule of law. Very important topic. Initially, first of all, you need to get comfortable with these important inputs. Then only we will proceed ahead. So, theory of rule of law, doctrine of rule of law, given by A.V. Dicey. So, we will look into rule of law. After that, we will look into evolution of constitution. How constitution has been evolved. Evolution of constitution. And last but not the least, we will look into classification of constitution. Classification of constitution. So these are all the part interlinked with each other. So all these parts are very well integrated with each other. We are going to do it one by one. This is supposedly agenda for my today's session and we'll be going to do it. But one more important point, student, it may be possible that once I'll be going to dictate or once I'll be going to explain you certain thing, you may find certain word very surprising. For example, let's say, if I'm going to use this word, that in a democracy, people hold the sovereign power. If I'm going to use this term, that in a democracy, people hold the sovereign power, so you should not get baffled or you should not get confused कि सर ये sovereign का मतलब क्या होता है. कुछ words ना केवल लिख लेने चाहिए, केवल समझ लेने चाहिए. उनका बहुत ज़्यादा broad explanation it is going to come later on. Because there is always a terminology, there is always a vocabulary, there is always the argument which I have to share without looking into the fact whether you know the definition or not. So it may be possible, I may be going to use few word. For example, अगर मैंने ये use कर लिया that it is a statutory law, तो आप यूँ मत सुनना सर ये statutory law क्या होता है. वो कभी ना कभी proof हो ही जाना है, आगे share कर लूँगा. लेकिन जब लिखवा रहा हूँ, समझा रहा हूँ, तो लिख लेना. कोई बहुत specific word होगा, then definitely I am going to explain it to you. No need to worry about it. So without wasting any time, let's start with our learning meaning and theory of constitution. Meaning and theory of constitution. So student, first of all, let's look into the word constitution itself. This particular word constitution is derived from Latin word. It has been derived from a Latin word. Although it is considered to be the etymology of both Latin and the French word, the word constitution is derived from a Latin word known as constitutio. Please write along with me. It has been derived from a Latin word constitutio. And why exactly this word is very important? Because constitutio comprises two important terminologies or two important words. Number one, constitutio is being made of two words. Number one, con का मतलब होता है together. Con means contribution, as we normally say na, contribution. So contribution means together. And then the second part of the word constitutio is stature. Stature, which means to establish. To establish. To form. To form something or to establish something. So the word constitution is basically the etymology of the word constitution is it has been derived from the Latin word and a French word which is commonly known as constitutio. So constitutio has two components, con together and stature, which means to place something, to establish something or to set something. Now student, we all know every possible political philosophy and democratic principles of the world has its genesis or has its root in the ancient Rome. So during the time of ancient imperial Rome, people were highly worried कि सारी power राजा के पास है. Every power belongs to the king and rest all people are turning out to be the subject of the king. So during this situation, student, at that particular period of time, during ancient times, people have realized that we need to come together. Now you can look into the etymology. During ancient Rome, people have realized that we need to come together and we need to establish certain rules under which the king is going to rule over us. So the basic word constitution is being dedicated towards the genesis of ancient imperial power of the Rome, when people have realized that in order to make sure that the king is going to rule over us, there has to be certain rules. And those rules leads towards the basic establishment of constitution. So what do we mean by constitution, which is something we'll be going to look at later on. But before I get down into the details of the word constitution, constitution comprises two important words coming together, con, and stature, which means to establish something. So during ancient imperial power of the Rome, people have realized we have to come together, we have to form a single unity, and we have to make sure even if the king is going to rule over us, he need to be ethical, he need to have certain principle, and those principles are under which the king is going to rule over us. And therefore the word constitution got its genesis. Now student, we are not living in ancient time. We are not living in medieval time. We are not living in pre-modern time. We are living in modern times, or in fact, to be very honest, we are living in post-modern time. So in this particular era, student, constitution has gone through multiple changes altogether, but there are fundamental principles of constitution which remains the same. So first of all, if I'm going to use the word constitution, constitution का मतलब होता है लोगों का साथ आना और साथ आके कुछ principles का बनाना. The word constitution means people coming together and people are going to establish certain rules, certain framework based upon which they are either going to govern some people or either they are going to get governed by some people. So based upon this, student, there are certain important meaning or tenets of constitution. Let's look into it. So first of all, I am writing the first definition of constitution. Constitution lays down the basic principle of constitution lays down the basic principle of political structure of a country, political structure of a state. Now you must be wondering कि सर state और country में क्या फर्क होता है, ये बाद में देखेंगे. कुछ चीजें ना धीरे धीरे पढ़ते चले जाएंगे, अभी एकदम से सारी चीजें नहीं करेंगे. Let's put our concentration on to understanding the definition of constitution. So constitution lays down the basic principle of political structure of a country. And then there is one more important definition which I am going to dictate it to you. So please write. I hope you people have already written down in your notebook. Constitution lays down the basic principle of political structure of a country. Constitution, please write after that. Constitution also outline the framework of constitution, also outline the framework of governance. Constitution, I hope you are writing. Constitution also lays down the or outline. Constitution also outline the framework of governance, comma, constitution, comma, constitution also established the distribution of authority. Constitution also established the distribution of authority among various branches of the state. Among various branches of the state. So how you will define constitution? I hope you people have already written down the definition. Constitution lays down the basic principle of political structure of a country. Number one, constitution outline the framework of governance. There is a big difference between government and governance. Those basic tenets and definition we'll be going to do as our session proceeds. So Constitution also outline the framework of governance. Apart from the fact that it lays the basic principle of political structure of a country, it's also outlined the framework of governance. And one of the most important aspect of Constitution is Constitution paves the way for distribution of authority. Distribution of authority, which means distribution of power or separation of power. स्कूल के दोनों में आप पढ़ते चले आए हैं that there are three organs of the state. We all know. So you have the judiciary, you have the executive, you have the legislature, but all judiciary, executive and legislature have certain powers. These powers are going to be defined, or these powers are going to define under certain boundaries by the help of Constitution itself. So if UPSC is going to ask a question somehow related to it, you can always write in this manner that Constitution lays down the basic principle of political structure of a country. It outlines the framework of governance, and it also have a distribution of authority. Distribution of authority means separation of power, which we'll be going to definitely read multiple times throughout the course of our session. So during ancient times, especially during the ancient imperial power of Rome itself, people have realized that they are being governed by king. But king should not govern in an absolute manner. There should be certain powers under which king is going to impose certain rules on us. But at the same time, kings is also supposed to be under some type of rules as well. If we are being governed by a king, then king is having the power, but there has to be certain power which actually govern the king, and those certain powers are being created with the virtue of Constitution. So Constitution is a combination of two words, con coming together and stature, which means to establish or to set certain principles, certain rules. Moving on, student. One very important point that we have to look into, in the past at least 5,000 years of history of human civilization all over the world, one of the basic principle of any time is what are going to be the principle under which the state is going to get run. वो कौन से principle होंगे, वो कौन से points होंगे, वो कौन से rules होंगे, what are going to be those rules, what are going to be those principle under which the state is going to rule over its citizens, or it is going to work with its citizen, or there is going to be a coordination between different organs of the state. And in order to have this particular theory of rules, in order to have this particular distribution of powers, we need to have a constitution. So in a nutshell, constitution, in a very layman term, I believe this is your first class, and not only this is your first class, this is in fact your first step towards the larger parameter of clearing the objective of the civil services exam. So one of the foremost important definition is understanding the constitution. So constitution karta kya hai? It creates the principle of political structure of a country, framework of governance and distribution of authority, based upon which student, there are certain foundational principle of constitution. There are certain foundational principle of constitution. What do we mean by foundational principle of constitution? Or I would rather say foundational principle of constitution, or I would rather say relevance of constitution. Why do we need constitution? What are the certain pillars which are enshrined in constitution, which is going to be very essential for a larger society? तो relevance क्या है constitution का? Why constitution is considered to be very important, very relevant, and what all are considered to be the basic foundational pillars of the constitution itself? First of all, constitution is the supreme law of the land. It is the supreme law of the land, a very important terminology. And you should use it in your answers whenever you'll be going to start practicing the answers. You should read these type of terminology on a regular basis. So one basic tenets or one basic theory or one basic meaning or one basic relevance that can be associated with the definition of constitution is supreme law of the land. Now, what do we mean by supreme law of the land? Let me explain it to you. Look into my body language. I guess my body language will make more sense over here. Let's say this is a larger umbrella, and under this larger umbrella there are some small umbrellas, or let's say this is a larger tree. And it's a larger tree which is having a huge trunk and having huge roots, and under the edges of this tree, इसी वृक्ष के नीचे, under the edges of this tree, there are multiple branches of the tree. So why constitution is considered to be the supreme law of the land? Because every other law in a country is basically derived from the principle of constitution itself. So whether it is Manrega, whether it is Motor Vehicle Act, whether it is CRPC, whether it is Indian Penal Code, whether it is GST Act 2017, IGST or GST Act 2017, every other law which is going to be created by our parliament or our state government, it is going to get derived based on the principle of constitution. Therefore, constitution is known as the supreme law of the land. Why it is the law of the land? Because it is the giant patriarch based upon which the other branches of law are going to get created. In a very simple term, student, constitution creates certain principles. Constitution creates certain important principles. Based upon which those principles, based upon those doctrines, various other law in our country are going to get derived. Therefore, it is known as the supreme law of the land. Supreme law of the land means whatever law state government or executives are going to create, it should respect the values of constitution. If you are reading newspaper or if you are still into the early days of reading newspaper, you must have come across this statement. आपने ये statement कभी ना कभी जरूर सुना होगा, which is, quote, constitution should be followed in both letter and spirit. It's a very common term, unquote. It's a very common term that you must have come across. Constitution should be followed in both letter and spirit. Now, what do we mean by both letter and spirit? Which means, जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में लिखा है और जो लिखने के पीछे ऑब्जेक्टिव रहा है, उनको ध्यान में रखते हुए लॉ बनाए जाने चाहिए. सो व्हेन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वाज रिटन, irrespective Indian constitution or American constitution or Brazilian constitution, I'm not talking about into the details of it. What I'm sharing is, if there is any constitution, then any law of the land needs to be derived from the values which are being given in those constitution. Therefore, constitution is very important because it is considered to be the supreme law of the land. Supreme law of the land means based upon which every other single law has been created or has been respected by keeping those constitutional values. तो इंडिया में कोई भी लॉ बनेगा, उसको constitutional values की respect करनी पड़ेगी. What exactly are constitutional value? This is something we'll be going to read in multiple classes. So why constitution is very relevant? Why constitution is very relevant in terms of its foundational principle? Because it is the supreme law of the land. It is also known as fundamental law of the land. It is also known as fundamental law of the land. And constitution, I am writing it over here, constitution creates certain principle. Constitution create certain principle which are essential for governance. Which are essential for governance. So why do we need constitution? Because constitution paves the way for fundamental law of the land. It is the supreme law of the land. It creates certain important principle based upon which the framework of governance is going to get created. So whether it is a municipality, whether it is a municipal corporation, whether it is a panchayat bhavan, whether it is a local government, whether it is a state government or whether it is a central government, every government and every authority needs to respect the foundational pillar of constitution because constitution suggests it to be a supreme law of the land. तो आप बनाइए लॉ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बनाइए रूल्स, बनाइए रेगुलेशन, लेकिन रूल्स, रेगुलेशन और लॉ बनाते वक्त कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज का ख्याल रखना जरूरी है. नाउ द क्वेश्चन इज, इफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी रिस्पेक्टेड, देन व्हाट विल हैपन? If those constitutional values which were the wisdom or knowledge of our founding father of our constitution, if they are not going to get respected, then you can always challenge it in the court, and court will realize whether the constitutional values have been respected or not. So first of all, keeping these two definitions in our mind, which I have already shared with you in my previous slide, I have shared with you this important input that Constitution lays down the basic principle of political structure of a country. It also creates the distribution of authority or distribution of power between various organs of the state. And it also outlines the framework of governance कि कहाँ कहाँ काम करना है, किस तरीके से काम करना है गवर्नमेंट की बॉडीज को. And getting into the details of the foundational principle or relevance, these are the three important inputs which are very essential to introduce constitution. So constitution is considered to be the fundamental and supreme law of the land, and it is also going to create certain basic principles which are very essential for the governance. This is prima facie a very unique discussion or a very unique input related to the values or related to the definition of constitution. Now moving on, let's look into one very important question. A very important question which is very much there in your 11th class NCERT as well. A very simple question for each and every one of us to look into. Why do we need a constitution? Why do we need a constitution? It's a very layman question. It's a very initial question. And I hope even in your preparation of during your school days as well, in your social science class, in your civics class, in your class 9th, in your class 10th, अब तो याद नहीं होगा, but इस टाइप की डिबेट्स हुई होगी, इस टाइप से टीचर ने पढ़ाया भी होगा. That why do we need a constitution? Is there any particular significance of it? Is there any particular answer for it? Let's look into it. So for example, student, let's say, let me answer this question. Why do we need a constitution? So let's say this rectangle is basically depicting society. And this society is being divided into multiple groups, isn't it? G1, G2, G9, dash, dash, dash. So society has been divided into multiple groups. Society been divided into multiple groups, which means society is always full of groups, isn't it? Society is always full of groups. Poor people, rich people, middle class people, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jews, North India, South India, Northeast India, West India, East India. Society is always been divided into various groups. Group based on religion, group based on ethnicity, group based on identity, group based on geography, group based on ideology, isn't it? तो पूरी सोसाइटी कई सारे ग्रुप्स में डिवाइडेड है. या फिर मैं ये कह सकता हूं, whenever there is going to be a society, there is going to be a grouping, there is going to be a groups, and groups leads towards the diversity. And groups leads towards the diversity. Now comes a very basic question. This society is going to decide on something. अगर इस सोसाइटी में ये 9 ग्रुप्स लोग रहते हैं और इनको आपस में डिसाइड करना है, they have to decide that we have to take certain decision. Now the question is, who will take decision? On what basis they will take decision? What rule they are going to implement? What type of decisions are going to be created so that all 9 peoples are going to be equally protected by the state itself? All these type of things will become a nightmare for any state to govern. So the problem is, student, society is being divided into multiple groups. Number one, multiple groups means society is full of diversity, and in the diverse society, it's very, very difficult to create certain rules. It's very, very difficult to create certain rules because group 1 will say, my rules will prevail. Group 2 will say my rule will prevail, Group 3 will say my rule will prevail. तो सब अपनी अपनी कहेंगे. तो ऐसे को दूर करने के लिए स्टूडेंट, इस पोजीशन को दूर करने के लिए you need to have a universal rule. You need to have those certain universal rule, you need to have those ubiquitous or global rule which are going to be accepted by all 9 groups. So if somebody going to put up this question in front of me, why do we need a constitution? The answer to this particular question is, we need a constitution to make sure the diverse group of society are going to be ruled by a single framework. If you want to write, you can. And let me dictate it to you. If you want to write, you can. No harm in it. You can write it. In order to govern, or in order to rule, different section of society, we need to have a universal rule. We need to have a universal rule. We need to have a universal rule, which is highly acceptable, among all the diverse groups, which is highly acceptable among all the diverse group, which is highly acceptable among all the diverse group. This universal acceptance of rule, can only be possible, this universal acceptance of rule can only be possible with the help of a constitution. So one very important point, student, is society is always comprising a lot of groups and having a diversity, and in order to have a cooperation, among this diverse group, we need to have a constitution. तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्यों चाहिए है? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इसलिए चाहिए है कि कुछ यूनिवर्सल रूल बनाए जा सकें. वी नीड अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन सो दैट वी कैन हैव सर्टेन यूनिवर्सल रूल, एंड बेस्ड अपॉन दोज यूनिवर्सल रूल वी कैन क्रिएट द पैरामीटर ऑफ कोऑपरेशन अमंग वेरियस ग्रुप्स इन द सोसाइटी. सो दिस इज अ वेरी एलिमेंट्री डेफिनेशन विच इज वेरी मच गिवन इन योर क्लास 11th NCERT इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एट वर्क. सो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की ज़रूरत इसलिए पड़ती है ताकि डाइवर्स ग्रुप ऑफ सोसाइटी में एक कोऑपरेशन की फिलॉसफी को इनकलकेट किया जा सके. वी नीड टू इनकलकेट द फिलॉसफी ऑफ कोऑपरेशन. वी नीड टू इनकलकेट द फिलॉसफी ऑफ यूनिवर्सल रूल सो दैट ऑल दीज ग्रुप्स आर गोइंग टू कोऑपरेट विथ ईच अदर. दे विल रियलाइज इफ रूल इज देयर फॉर G1, रूल इज ऑल्सो देयर फॉर G9, एंड देयर इज नो डिस्क्रिमिनेशन बिटवीन इट. सो वी नीड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन to create universal rule. We need constitution to create certain type of cooperation so that diverse society group are going to interact with each other without having any harm. So this leads towards a very important statement, student. Why do we need a constitution? I have already answered it. This leads towards a very important area, which is significance of constitution. So please give the headline. Significance of constitution. Significance of constitution, relevance of constitution, importance of constitution, whatever you want to write, it's all appropriate, it's all correct. But before I proceed ahead, let me write a very important statement by Subhash Kashyap. So Subhash Kashyap, sir, a very respected personality in the field of Indian constitution. So he, in his book, he has written a very beautiful book, a very simple book, Our Constitution. And in the page number 4 or 5 itself, सुभाष कश्यप ने एक स्टेटमेंट लिखा है, और वो स्टेटमेंट है, in democracy, which we indeed are, people are their own masters. People are their own sovereign masters. What a beautiful line this one, and this is something you can use it in your answers as well, that in democracy, people are their own sovereign master. Now, what do we mean by sovereign master? Sovereign master means people can take their own decision. They are not being dictated by someone else. They are going to take their own decision. So, पढ़ने में तो बड़ा अच्छा लगता है that in democracy people are their own sovereign master. But hold on for a minute. If I am my own sovereign master and you are also your own sovereign master, and under this situation, if I am going to take a decision which is going to harm you, or if you are going to take a decision which is going to harm me, then this situation will lead towards a dispute between you and me. It will lead towards a complete anarchy. In order to remove this, we need to have a constitution. अरे हाँ ठीक है, मान लिया कि डेमोक्रेसी में हर व्यक्ति, हर पर्सन अपने खुद के डिसीजन ले सकता है, but those decisions need to be respected by others as well. Those decisions need to be within the framework of law and order itself. Because if I am going to take certain decision which is going to intrude or which is going to enter into your life, or which is going to disturb your privacy, which is going to disturb your right, then that type of decision are not going to get acceptable. तो लोग सॉवरेन मास्टर हैं, लोग खुद भी कोई भी डिसीजन ले सकते हैं क्योंकि वो इंडिपेंडेंट और डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री में रहते हैं, बट दोज डिसीजंस नीड टू बी विद इन द पैरामीटर और विद इन द एम्बिट और विद इन द सर्कल ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैल्यूज इटसेल्फ. So why do we need constitution, student? I have already answered it. But before I proceed ahead with the more technical details of significance of constitution, let's look into this statement and then proceed ahead. Subhas Kashyap says, in democracy, people are their own sovereign master. No doubt about that. But to make sure your sovereignty means you are independent, you can take your own decision. But in order to make sure your sovereignty is accepted, my sovereignty is going to be accepted, her sovereignty, his sovereignty is going to get firmly intact. इसको इंश्योर करने के लिए एक ऐसी इंस्टीट्यूशन होनी चाहिए जो कि सब पर वॉच करे, सबको कोशिश करे कि लॉ एंड ऑर्डर के प्रोसेस के अकॉर्डिंगली दे आर गोइंग टू मेक श्योर दैट दे आर गोइंग टू गेट वेल कनेक्टेड विथ ईच अदर, दे आर गोइंग टू हैव अ सेंस ऑफ कोऑपरेशन रादर देन अ सेंस ऑफ अनकंट्रोल्ड कॉम्पिटिशन. सो in democracy, people are their sovereign master, but in order to ensure their right, my right of me being sovereign and your right of you being sovereign, it's very essential to have a constitution. So what does constitution do? Constitution makes sure that people remain going to be their own sovereign master. What a beautiful line. Constitution ensure that people are going to remain being their own sovereign master, and therefore we required constitution, student. So Subhash Kashyap has very appropriately described that in a democratic country it's very essential to have a constitution, because constitution will make sure that the sovereignty of people are going to be firmly intact, or sovereignty of people are going to be always there. And therefore constitution is very important. Now let's look into certain details related to it. So why do we need constitution? I have answered it superficially. What is the significance of constitution? I have answered it superficially. Now let us look into some technical details, some important inputs, some important points which are essential for our examination point of view. So please write first point. Please write. We need constitution. Right, first point, I am dictating it to you. We need constitution because it creates a set of basic rules. Because it creates a set of basic rules. It creates a set of basic rule which will ensure minimum coordination among people. Which will ensure minimum coordination among people or among members of the society. So very important point ना, we need to have a minimum coordination. अरे भाई, मैं अपने डिसीजन लेने के लिए सॉवरेन हूं, आप अपने डिसीजन लेने के लिए सॉवरेन हो, लेकिन हमारे बीच में कोऑर्डिनेशन भी तो होना चाहिए. वी नीड टू हैव अ कोऑर्डिनेशन, अदरवाइज यू विल टेक योर सॉवरेन डिसीजन एंड इट विल हर्ट मी एंड वाइस वर्सा. So in order to remove this problem, we need to have a constitution. So the first set of basic significant aspect of constitution is it creates a set of basic rule which will ensure minimum coordination among the masses or minimum coordination among the members of a society itself. So that's a very important point, number one. Number two, why there is a significance of constitution? Because constitution will make sure who holds the power to make rule. Who holds the power to make rule? Constitution will describe who will make rule. For example, let's say you are in a class. You are in a class where there is a total amount of 50 students, and the teacher has decided that tomorrow there is going to be one activity. Now, how you are going to decide which activity is going to be there? Few people are saying कि cricket खेलेंगे, few people are saying football खेलेंगे, few people are saying we'll do this, we'll do that, and there will be a situation of complete chaos in the classroom. So what you are going to do? Out of those 50 people, there is going to be voting. There is going to be unanimous decision. That unanimous decision is going to make sure that there are going to be 4 people, and those 4 people will decide. Out of 50, those 4 people will decide that we are going to create this type of rule based upon which tomorrow's activity is going to get happen as instructed by the teacher. So why we need a constitution? Constitution is very important because it will decide who holds the power to make rules. Who hold the power to make rules? Who hold the power to govern over us? Because I have my sovereign power. You have your own sovereign power. There has to be certain third authority which will make sure my power and your power is going to be firmly intact, is going to be firmly secured. तो उसके लिए हम एक व्यक्ति को डिसाइड करना पड़ेगा ना, एक इंस्टीट्यूशन को डिसाइड करना पड़ेगा कि भाई आपके पास पावर है ताकि ना गलती मैं करूं ना गलती ये करे और हम अपनी अपनी पावर्स को एंजॉय करें. So why Constitution is highly significant, student? Constitution is highly significant because Constitution paves the way for a very important dictum or a very important point, which is who holds the power to make rule, or how government is going to get constructed, how government is going to get created. Let me write it. Who holds the power to make rule, or how government is going to create rule. How government is going to create rule. Why we need a government? We need a government to make sure Subhash Kashyap's statement that people are their own sovereign masters are going to get protected. Yes, we are our own sovereign master. In Hindi Bollywood movies, you must have come across a very important term, Janta Janardhan. सुना होगा ना, जनता जनार्दन. तो जनता जनार्दन क्यों बोला जाता है? इसलिए बोला जाता है दैट पीपल आर देयर सॉवरेन मास्टर्स. तो कहने को हम सब अपने सॉवरेन मास्टर्स हैं, लेकिन हम सारे डिसीजंस इंडिपेंडेंटली लेंगे और एक दूसरे के साथ कोऑपरेट नहीं करेंगे, तब तो फिर एनार्की हो जाएगी, हम एक दूसरे को मारने काटने लगेंगे. In order to avoid it, we need an institution, and that institution is going to be created by the values mentioned in the Constitution. So significance of Constitution can also be understood by this particular point. Number one, Constitution creates a set of basic rule. I hope you people are writing it. You people are writing it. You people are listening to the concept. You people are also writing those important points that I'm dictating it to you. So Constitution creates a set of basic rules which will ensure minimum coordination. Number one, Constitution will always make sure that who is going to hold the power to make rules, which means what are going to be the government functioning, how government is going to get formed. अब बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल्स में लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, थोड़ी बहुत चीज़ें समझ रहे होगे कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ही इंश्योर करता है कि हाउ पावर इज गोइंग टू बी एक्नॉलेज अमंग द मासेस और हाउ पावर इज गोइंग टू बी देयर विथ द गवर्नमेंट टू मेक रूल्स. So therefore we need a very important provision of Constitution. One more important point, perhaps the most important point. Student, we are sharing why do we need Constitution? So we need Constitution because it is only the Constitution which support the ideology or doctrine of limited government. Very important point. Very, very important point. The primary purpose of constitution is to create the way for doctrine of limited government. We cannot have the unlimited government. We need to have a limited government. Now, what do we mean by limited government? Let me explain it to you. I'll just give you one example. I'll just give you one example, an arbitrary example. Let's say student, I'm giving you one opportunity that you can go to a country A or country B. Country A is that country where you have unrestricted rights. बहुत सारे राइट्स हैं आपको बहुत सारे राइट्स दे के रखे हुए हैं. यू गॉट अनबिलीवेबल अमाउंट ऑफ राइट्स, but at the same time there is a condition that right can be snatched away by the government without even asking you, without even consulting you. At the stroke of one must play or at that stroke of one pen argument or one pen written document, they can take away your rights. So there is one country A where you have unbelievable amount of right, where there is no restriction onto you. You can purchase any property, you can have any type of property in your home, in your account, and at the same time, you are not going to have any taxation, you are not going to have any type of control of the government. But the only condition is, whenever government will decide, they will take away all the rights given it to you. Because government is having the unlimited amount of power, they are delegating certain rights to you, but they are definitely going to take away those rights whenever they feel or desire to do so. So this is country A. And then there is a country B, where you have limited rights, well-protected rights, well-defined rights, and at the same time, government is also having a limited intervention in your life. गवर्नमेंट कैन नॉट इंटरफियर इन योर लाइफ एज दे डिजायर टू डू सो. गवर्नमेंट के भी राइट्स हैं, लेकिन गवर्नमेंट के राइट्स भी लिमिटेड हैं और आपके राइट्स भी लिमिटेड हैं. विच कंट्री यू वुड लाइक टू लिव? आई एम 100% श्योर यू वुड लाइक टू लिव इन कंट्री बी, वेयर योर राइट्स आर वेल डिफाइंड एंड गवर्नमेंट इज ऑल्सो हैविंग सर्टेन रेस्ट्रिक्शन, सर्टेन लिमिटेशन. दैट्स व्हाट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डू. Constitution, the basic philosophy of Constitution, one of the nucleus of Constitution is Constitution promotes the doctrine of limited government. Doctrine of limited government का मतलब होता है there should be restriction onto the powers of government. Government cannot have uncontrolled power. There should be restriction onto the powers of government. That's what doctrine of limited government is all about. Government has certain limitations. Government has certain periphery. Government has certain boundary. The very basic principle of Constitution is to promote the doctrine of limited government. Without having the doctrine of limited government, you cannot have a constitution, and without having constitution, you cannot survive in modern day democratic world. अरे भाई, डेमोक्रेसी का मतलब ही है सुभाष कश्यप statement that people are their own sovereign master, and when people are their own sovereign master, it can only be possible with the help of constitution. बड़ा सुनने में तो बड़ा अच्छा लग रहा है कि कश्यप साहब ने कहा है कि people are their own sovereign master, but it can only be possible with the help of constitution. And why it is only possible with the help of constitution? Because constitution का basic principle और basic tenet यही होता है that they promote the doctrine of limited government, that there should be restriction onto the powers of government, which means red marker से लिखते हैं, which means government cannot create arbitrary law. Very, very important, perhaps the most important statement for today's session. Government cannot create arbitrary law. Government मनमाफिक कानून, arbitrary का मतलब होता है one dimensional. Law should respect every citizen of the country. Law should respect the general will of the people. In political science, there is a very famous thinker, Rousseau, who propounded the theory of social contract. During the Enlightenment era in the Europe itself, he propounded the theory of social contract. We will look into details later on, but मैं इस statement आपको याद दिलाना चाहता हूँ. ये statement सुन लो. So somebody had asked Rousseau that what type of constitution should be there in a state. किसी स्टेट में, स्टेट का मतलब होता है कंट्री, एक कंट्री, स्टेट की एक डेफिनेशन होती है विच आई विल शेयर विथ यू इन माई कपल ऑफ सेशन, मे बी नेक्स्ट वीक आई बी गोइंग टू शेयर मोर डिटेल्स रिलेटेड टू इट. सो somebody had asked Rousseau that which type of state is going to be a state where people rights are going to get respected. So, or which type of constitution is required to be there in a state? What should be the basic principle of a constitution? Somebody had asked Rousseau, what should be the basic principle of a constitution which is very essential in a particular state? So, Rousseau answered it very significantly. Rousseau said, Constitution should respect the general will of the people. Constitution should respect the general will of the people. Constitution should respect the general aspirations of the people. हिंदी में भी कह देता हूं, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को व्यक्तियों की महत्वाकांक्षाओं का सम्मान करना चाहिए. Constitution should respect the general will of the people, general aspirations of the people, and therefore, student, it's a very important term. If Constitution should respect the general will of the people, government cannot create arbitrary law. Even if 10 people are going to get affected by a law in unconstitutional manner, those laws are never going to be held in the corridors of Supreme Court. तो अगर आपको मान लेते हैं अगर आपको गवर्नमेंट का कोई लॉ बनाया है, उससे आपको प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, आपको लगता है गलत लॉ बनाया गया है, सो यू विल ऑलवेज चैलेंज इट इनटू द कॉरिडोर्स ऑफ जुडिशियल सिस्टम, एंड व्हेनेवर यू आर गोइंग टू चैलेंज इट, योर लॉयर विल ऑलवेज यूज दिस टर्म, सर, माय लॉर्डशिप, योर लॉर्डशिप, दिस लॉ इज आर्बिट्रेरी. This is the standard line. This is the standard line we use whenever you feel certain law are inappropriate or unconstitutional. So any law that is unconstitutional, any law that is inappropriate is going to be acknowledged with one very important term, arbitrary law. And take my word, whether it is Indian constitution or whether it is American constitution or whether it is any constitution of the world, arbitrariness has no scope in the field of constitution. So one very important point. When you say the word limited government का मतलब होता है यार कि सरकार के भी हाथ बंधे रहने चाहिए. We need to have a condition where government is also going to have certain tying up of their hand. They cannot have uncontrolled power where they are going to misuse us with their whims and fancies. No, it should never be the case. So Constitution has certain very important provisions known as Doctrine of Limited Government, which means there should be restriction onto the power of government, which means government cannot create arbitrary law, which also means government cannot create unjust, unreasonable. Please write unreasonable. Fine. I have a limitation of space over here. तो वो B और F एक जैसा लग रहा है. So unjust, unreasonable, and of course, student, unfair. Unfair. It's a very important term, and please use it in your answer writing. I will give you certain answer writing maybe after 3 or 4 classes, and you start practicing it. So why do we need a constitution? What is the significance of the word constitution? Constitution paves the way for doctrine of limited government. अगर constitution नहीं होगा तो government unlimited हो जाएगी. वो आपको मनचाहे तरीके से रूल करेगी आपके ऊपर. They'll be going to take away your home. They'll be going to take away your rights. They'll be going to take away your political rights, civil rights. Everything is going to be derived from the government. They will give it to you. They will take it away based upon their desire. This is something we don't want. And therefore, student, we use the word doctrine of limited government. So Constitution has a doctrine of limited government under which government cannot be arbitrary. And when we use the term government means जो पुलिस थाने में बैठा हुआ सब इंस्पेक्टर है वो भी एग्जीक्यूटिव है, वो भी गवर्नमेंट है, और जो हमारे चीफ मिनिस्टर है, हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर है, वो भी गवर्नमेंट है. So government cannot create arbitrary law. Government means state government, central government, executive, institutions, everyone. They cannot create arbitrary law. They cannot create arbitrary rules. And even if they are going to create certain law, law should be just, law should be reasonable, law should be fair. It should not be unjust, unreasonable, unfair. और अगर कोई लॉ आपको लगता है गलत है, इसका मतलब है वो arbitrary है. It is unjust, it is unfair, it is unreasonable, it is illogical, and you can always challenge it on to the corridors of the Supreme Court itself. You can take the help of the legal remedies. So one very important point, what is the most important significance aspect of the Constitution? It promotes the doctrine of limited government. Moving on. Which point is this one? I guess it was the third point. Point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. Now let me write the point number 4th. Point number 4th. What is the significance of Constitution? I hope you people are writing it one by one. So let's look into the point number 4th as well. Point number 4 says, Constitution represents the collective conscience of the people. A very important line, isn't it? Constitution present the collective conscience of the people. थोड़ा और elaborate कर लेना. Constitution represent the collective conscience of the people. Constitution represent the collective will of the people. Constitution represent the collective aspiration of the people. Collective aspirations of the people. A very important line. Redo it. Constitution represent the collective conscience of the people. Constitution represent the collective aspiration of the people. So keeping this thing in mind, I should elaborate in this particular fashion. Please understand, just 2 or 3 slides ago, I am writing a very important terminology as per Subhash Kashyap that people are their own sovereign master. हम अपने मालिक खुद हैं, लेकिन हमें मालिक बनाया किसने है? हम बाय बर्थ तो मालिक बन के नहीं आए. हम सिटीजन हैं इस कंट्री के, एंड एज पर द डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री और डेमोक्रेटिक नॉर्म्स ऑफ इंडिया वी आर आवर ओन सॉवरेन मास्टर. बट व्हाई वी आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी आवर ओन सॉवरेन मास्टर? हु गेव अस द अथॉरिटी टू बी आवर ओन सॉवरेन मास्टर? इट्स द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन विच प्रोवाइड अस. Constitution actually represent the collective conscience of the people or collective aspiration of the people. If our theory is that we are not going to abide by the government principles because this government which has been working right now or that government which has been working right now, we do not want this government, then we hold the power to overthrow that government with our democratic process of election itself. So democratic process of election says anybody who's having more than 50% of majority in the house will get the opportunity to form the government. So if a CM is there, if a PM is there, that CM and PM is an individual. That CM and PM is also indicating the collective aspiration of the people. So in Delhi, we have a CM. In Delhi, we have a PM. In various state capital, we have the chief minister. They are not individual. They are actually collective aspiration of the people. लोगों ने चुन के भेजा है. So therefore, I am using the word, a very important terminology, collective aspiration of the people. अब जो collective aspiration है, उसमें 50% होना चाहिए, 60% होना चाहिए, वो constitution में derived होगा. So constitution is very important in terms of the fact that it represents the collective aspiration of the people. It represents the collective will of the people. If the will of the people says that this particular right need to be respected, then under this situation, even constitution will acknowledge it and parliament is going to amend certain provision of the constitution. Let me give you one example. I am not promoting this example because as of now, it's too early for us to look into the detail of this example, but just look into from the perspective of learning. Now, I'm just having a debate right now. Let's have one constitutional debate. And that debate is been associated with at least last year, very important case. The case name was Supriyo Chakraborty. In my class, you'll be going to have a lot of important cases of Supreme Court which are going to increase your overall learning. So, in Supriyo Chakraborty case, Supreme Court refuses to acknowledge same-sex marriage. Supreme Court refuses to acknowledge same-sex marriage. They've decided that no, same-sex marriages is too early for a country like India. We are not mature enough as a society to promote same-sex marriages. There are a lot of countries which has already given the right for the homosexual couples to get married. But is India ready for it? The Supreme Court said a very important term that as far as the same-sex marriage is concerned, it should be represented by the realms of the constitution values itself, and it should be respected by creating certain law within the parliament itself. So Supreme Court said कि हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि सेम सेक्स मैरिज नहीं होना चाहिए या सेम सेक्स मैरिज होना चाहिए, हम ये कह रहे हैं कि इस पर पहले डिबेट होना चाहिए पार्लियामेंट में. There should be a proper debate in the parliament. There should be a proper debate in the society. If society is opening up or welcoming the same-sex couple, then what is the harm to provide or accord this right to the people of this country? So Supreme Court said a very important terminology in the Supriyo Chakravarti case. Supriyo Chakravarti case, Supreme Court refused to give constitutional right to same-sex couple to get married. Supreme Court said that whether you want to get married or not, it should be your individual decision, but at the same time, same-sex couple is truly a different thing altogether. Some people consider it to be unnatural. Medical science has its own doubt related to the same-sex marriages as such. Therefore, keeping this thing in mind, whether it should be allowed or whether it should not be allowed, it should be properly discussed within the parliament, and it should be discussed in a very healthy manner in the society itself. If society is opening up, if society is highly in favor of accepting the same-sex couple, then there is no harm to restrict that particular right. Therefore, a very important terminology, student. Constitution always represents the collective conscience of the people. It always represents the collective aspiration of the people. Constitution एक कोई बाहर से टपकी हुई चीज नहीं है. It is not a foreign object that has been imposed on you. Not at all. It actually represents the collective aspiration of the people. What is your collective aspiration? Number one, society should be equal. There should be equal rights for everyone. There should be no discrimination between men, women, children. There should not be any restriction on movement. I should have freedom of speech and expression. These are all the collective aspiration, and these collective aspirations are very well included in the constitutional provision of India and of course rest of the world as well. So one very important significance of constitution is point number 4. Constitution represents the collective conscience of the people, collective aspirations of the people. That's point number 4. Moving on, point number 5. I hope you are writing it. There is one problem in the online session. I never get the opportunity to see student whether they are writing it, because lot of things can get clear once a student are there in front of me. But after 2020, everything has been changed after Corona. Teachers need to get comfortable in teaching online, and students need to get comfortable to study online as well. So I hope you people are writing it along with me, and you people are understanding the concept that I'm sharing with you. So let's look into the 5th point. We are sharing the significance of constitution. So let's look into the 5th point. And the 5th point says, 5th point is a very important terminology in terms of our overall understanding. Constitution also lays the foundation of certain enabling provision. Very important line, very important line. Constitution lays the foundation of certain enabling provision. Look student, before you look into article 1 to article 4 to article 5 to article 12, वो सब बाद में पढ़ना, पहले fundamentals sharp करो. And those fundamentals are going to be very essential for your overall learning. So first of all, why constitution is very significant, why constitution is having a very important functioning, because one of the most important functioning of constitution is it lays the foundation of certain enabling provision. It lays the foundation of certain enabling provision. Now first of all let me explain what do we mean by enabling provision. Enabling provision का मतलब होता है, enabling provision का मतलब होता है some responsibilities of course on government, some responsibilities on government that need to be fulfilled. Some responsibilities on government that need to be fulfilled, or some responsibilities on government that need to be pursued, that need to be followed, or I would rather say certain action that government should follow. Some responsibilities, or you can also write in this manner, some responsibility और some action that government will take. कुछ ऐसे स्टेप जो गवर्नमेंट को लेने चाहिए. Certain responsibility, certain action that government should take, or certain responsibility that government need to be followed, but it is not the obligation. But it is not the obligation. करना चाहिए और करना ही होगा, इसमें फर्क होता है. आई होप यू आर अंडरस्टैंडिंग अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टेनेट ओवर हियर. दे शुड डू and they must do. There is a big difference over here. So similarly, one important point, enabling provision. What is enabling provision means? Enabling provision means certain decisions as per the values of the constitution, certain responsibilities, certain action that government need to be taken, certain steps that government should take, certain responsibility that government need to be fulfilled, but it is not the obligation of it. कोई necessary नहीं है कि वही चीज करनी होगी, उसके लिए वो जो step लेना चाहे ले सकते हैं. Let me give you one example. I hope examples are going to make it very clear for you. For example, what is one enabling provision? For example, one enabling provision which has been hallmark of our Indian constitution is to remove inequality, isn't it? One of the basic principle of constitution in our country's Article 14 is to promote the principle of equality. And promoting the principle of equality means, which means we need to have proportional equality, और इंडिया में inequality को दूर करना है. Because when we achieved the freedom, India was one of the highly unequal society at that particular period of time, and things more or less remains the same as of now. So one of the basic enabling provision, यानी कि गवर्नमेंट का ये एक्शन होना चाहिए, गवर्नमेंट को ये काम करना चाहिए. One of the duty, one of the action, one of the basic tenets that government should do, they should remove the inequality, isn't it? They should remove the inequality. But how they will remove the inequality? What steps they are going to take removing the equality? This is something government will decide as per their wisdom. So for example, reservation, a very controversial topic. Reservation. Controversial because of the fact that people, based upon the theories that they are promoting, for some people are in favor of reservation, some people are not in favor of reservation. Both of them are having their core argument and it turning out to be a very volatile issue for our society. But hold on for a minute. Why reservation? Reservation is one of the most important parameter to inequality, but it is not the only parameter. Isn't it? It is not the only parameter. It is one of the enabling provision in our country. Why it is enabling provision? Because based upon reservation, government will make sure that historic injustice, हजारों साल से जो अन्याय हुआ है, historic injustice can be removed from those people who've been suffering due to the caste discrimination or due to the discrimination of other means. So reservation is not a fundamental right. Reservation is the enabling provision of the constitution. Write this particular terminology. लिख लो अपनी notebook में. Reservation in our country, reservation in our country, reservation in our country is one of the enabling provision. Reservation in our country is one of the enabling provision. One of the enabling provision. So what do we mean by enabling provision? Enabling provision means there are certain action, certain responsibility that government need to be taken up, that government need to be fulfilled, but it is not the obligation. So for example, Article 15.4. So what does Article 15.4 says? Article 15.4 says कि हमारी country में जो backward communities हैं, backward classes हैं, socio-educationally backward classes, government will take certain steps for them and government will give certain priority to them. But what type of priority is going to be there? This is only government will decide. It's not like priority can only be limited up to reservation. It can be other means as well. So one of the most important point which is related to Indian constitution or which is related to significance of constitution is constitution में ऐसे बहुत सारे enabling provision होते हैं. So one of the enabling provision in any constitution of the world, in any constitution, you pick American constitution, you pick Indian constitution, one of the enabling provision is to remove inequality. But in which manner they are going to remove inequality, government will decide on its own. There cannot be obligation that you have to distribute cash. There cannot be obligation that you have to provide reservation alone. There cannot be obligation that you have to take this type of a step only. नो तो आप सर पे बंदूक रख के नहीं कह सकते स्टेट को या गवर्नमेंट को यही स्टेप लेना होगा, नहीं, इनेबलिंग प्रोविजन है और गवर्नमेंट अपने तरीके से डिसाइड करेगी. एंड देयरफॉर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, वेरी वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लेज द फाउंडेशन ऑफ अ सर्टेन इनेबलिंग प्रोविजन, and based upon this enabling provision, government will make sure that the collective conscience of the people, collective will of the people are going to get fulfilled. So please look into the previous point. What was the previous point? Previous point was constitution represent the collective conscience of the people or constitution represent the collective aspiration of the people. Now collective का मतलब होता है हिंदी में जैसे हम बोलते हैं सबके लिए सामूहिक. So if it is the word collective over here, so government will take certain decision which is going to help the collective aspiration of the people. And therefore, I have used a very important terminology over here. That's point number 5 for me. That constitution also lays the foundation of enabling provision. It's a very, very important very, very important point. Constitution, significance of constitution can be depicted in this manner, that constitution always makes sure that there are going to be certain enabling provision which need to be followed very appropriately. और एक चीज़ याद रखना, reservation as per the theories of reservation in our country, reservation is one of the most important enabling provision in our country. Enabling provision means based upon which the government will make sure that the inequalities or historic injustice are going to get removed. But ये डिबेट का विषय है, ये डिबेट का टॉपिक है कि हम रिजर्वेशन के मीडियम से, इनेबलिंग प्रोविजन के मीडियम से जो इनइक्वालिटी और जो इनजस्टिस है सो दूर कर पाए हैं कि नहीं. सो दिट्स अगेन अ ट्रूली डिफरेंट गेम ऑल टुगेदर. So that's point number 5. Significance of constitution is it lays the foundation of certain enabling provision. Point number 6. One more important area. Point number 6. What is the significance of constitution? What is the importance of constitution? Relevance of constitution? You can quote this point number 6 as well. Constitution will make sure there is going to be a separation of power. So one of the hallmark or one of the basic tenet of constitution is it will always make sure that there is going to be a fragmentation of power, because we need not to have a situation where one institution is having uncontrolled power. So constitution will make sure there is going to be a separation of power. Constitution will make sure there is going to be a fragmentation of power. Fragmentation का मतलब समझ रहे हो ना? And one more important point, student. Those people who joined with me, one very important area to be discussed. Please don't think, sir, that your vocabulary is very high. A lot of people accuse me, sir, please vocabulary high है, समझ नहीं आ रहा sir, थोड़ी कम English कर दो ना. I'm not going to do that, because student, every subject has its own vocabulary. And we need to follow that particular vocabulary, because if you are not going to understand that vocabulary, you are not going to write those answers. So what a beautiful line that you have today written in your notebook, I hope. 2 lines are very, very important, as you can recall it. Government cannot take arbitrary decision. Government cannot have arbitrary law. What a beautiful word, arbitrary. Arbitrary means, one-dimensional. It's not multi-dimensional. It is not respecting anyone. It is also respecting few one. So government cannot create arbitrary law. Government cannot have unjust law, unreasonable law, unfair law. These are all the very powerful word of Indian Constitution, and you have to read it from day one. So please don't request this point that please sir और अच्छी बहुत सिंपल सी vocabulary लिखवा दो हमको. वो नहीं होगा, फिर आप मिस कर जाओगे पूरी बात को जो आगे आपके लिए important है. So from day one itself, from today itself, it's very essential that we should read, we should write, we should learn, and we should practice that particular vocabulary which is requirement of the exam. So in my previous point, been sharing with you that reservation is one of the enabling provision, which means government should give reservation, ideally should give reservation, but they cannot be obliged to do so. You can seek reservation, but you cannot push government कि reservation दो, नहीं तो हम आपका जीना हराम कर देंगे. वो नहीं हो सकता, because it is one of the enabling provisions. So please understand, reservation is one of the enabling provision to make sure society is going to get equal, and equal society is one of the collective aspiration for a citizen like me and for a citizen like you. So Constitution also gives a very important provision, which is it's all about separation of power and fragmentation of power. Because student, without having a fragmentation of power, without having a separation of power, we cannot have checks and balances. Isn't it? We cannot have checks and balances, and without having checks and balances, you cannot ensure that all state institutions are working within their domain. One very important point that I've just shared with you, one basic principle of Constitution is to promote the doctrine of limited government, isn't it? Doctrine of limited government. And doctrine of limited government can only be possible when there is going to be checks and balances. Judiciary is going to have the complete overview or review of the executive functioning and the legislature functioning. Legislature का executive पर, executive का legislature पर एक coordination, cooperation हो, और इन दोनों का control judiciary के हाथ में तो पूरा ना हो, but at the same time judiciary should have the review power of the decision taken by the executive and legislature. Therefore we need to have a checks and balances. Checks and balances are very essential to fulfill the objective of doctrine of limited government. अरे भाई, लिमिटेड गवर्नमेंट का मतलब है अनकंट्रोल्ड डिसीजन नहीं होने चाहिए कि जो भी डिसीजन आया वो ले लिया, नहीं, और अगर लिया है तो फिर उसको रिजेक्ट करने की पावर भी किसी के पास होनी चाहिए. देयरफॉर, in order to have the checks and balances in a democratic system, in order to have checks and balances, we need to have a constitution, because constitution will make sure it is going to create the process of separation of power and fragmentation of power. And we always understand this point, separation of power is never easy. It's never easy because institution wants to have maximum power onto their hand. They do not want to delegate power. And this is where the constitutional debate arises. Which institution will hold power and what type of power or what extent of power? So constitution has one more important point or one more important significance. It creates the process of separation of power or of course fragmentation of power. This point is point number 6. Point number 6. Let me write point number 7. Constitution has one more important point, student, one more important objective or significance which has been associated with Constitution. Constitution represents the collective identity of the people. It represents the collective identity of a people. So, my constitution, which is Indian Constitution is not only a written or document, student, it is also my collective identity. It is also my personal identity. The Constitution that is there in front of your notebook, and it is there in front of your desk, or the Constitution which is you people are going to study, you people are going to read, it is not only a legal document, it is not only a written document, it is your national identity as well. Yes, Constitution is your identity, Constitution is my identity. For example, if you come across one person who is an Indian, so how you will acknowledge Indian apart from skin color and language, how you will acknowledge a person who is an Indian? The acknowledgement is he is an Indian, he is having equal right like any other citizen of his or her country, because as far as Indian Constitution is concerned, Indian Constitution provides equal rights to everyone. Of course, there are certain exceptions, equal rights to everyone. So, Constitution is not only a written document, student, it is way beyond written document because it represents the collective identity of people. So, collective identity means I have a political identity as well, that immediately after the age of 18, I can choose my legislatures. The day I am going to turn 18 years old, I am going to act my sovereign power of voting that particular person who is going to represent me for 5 years. सो वाई आई एम राइटिंग अ वेरी पावरफुल वर्ड ओवर हियर. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का सिग्निफिकेंस केवल इसलिए नहीं है कि वो आपको राइट्स देता है, वो आपकी आइडेंटिटी भी तो इंश्योर करता है. इट रिप्रेजेंट्स द कलेक्टिव आइडेंटिटी ऑफ पीपल, और आई वुड रादर से it represents the national identity of the people of India. So if you are holding the Indian passport, which itself is a proof that you belong to a democratic country, and that particular democratic country which has its no connection with the idea of religion, because India is a secular country. A state has no specific religion. But let's say if somebody is holding the passport of Pakistan, so Pakistan true identity is it's a Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So if a person is holding the passport of Pakistan, which means it's the one of the country which is being created or which is being crafted based upon the religious identity. So Pakistan has a state religion. India does not has a state religion. We are a secular country. So if you are holding the passport of India, it is having a national identity, and that national identity is depicting that you come from a country which actually respects secularism, or you come from a country which does not have any state specific religion. रहते बहुत सारे religion वाले लोग हैं, लेकिन state का खुद का religion नहीं है. So one very important point that I want to share with you, significance of constitution can also be associated with this point. It represents the collective identity of the people. Constitution represents the national identity of the people. और थोड़ा और elaborate कर लो, थोड़ा और पढ़ो इसको. Constitution also represent the political identity of people or political identity of citizen of a country. So I have one political identity as well. Yes, I do have political identity because I am not only a citizen of this country, I am also a voter of this country. I am definitely going to exercise my voting power, which has been well drafted, created and ensured by the constitutional values, and based upon which I am going to select who is going to become the parliamentarian or the legislature of my constituency for a period of 5 years. और मुझे वो represent करेगा जब वो विधानसभा या लोकसभा में बैठा रहेगा. So represent the collective identity of the people. And India is one such country, student, which does not have country as a country. India is one such country which has not been created based upon racial identity, is not been created based upon religious identity, is not been created based upon caste identity. It's a country which has been created based upon secular identity. Nowadays, there is a lot of debate whether we should have secularism as a principle in our country or not. But the fact of the matter is, if you are going to look into the significance of Indian Constitution, it's very, very straightforward. As a countryman, as a citizen of this country, whenever I'm going to represent India outside my country, people will realize you belong to a country, तुम उस country से आते हो, which does not differentiate or discriminate people based upon races, caste, religion, etc. Therefore, student, a very important point over here. Constitution has one more important significance. It represents the collective identity of people. It represents the collective wishes of the people, will of the people, and collective identity of the people, which is national identity, political identity. For example, like, from if you are in a family, so if you belong to a particular family, so based upon which family you belong to, you have your family identity. You have your family identity, you have your business identity, you have your financial identity. Similarly, student, we have our national identity based upon the constitution, which actually been making sure that there are going to be certain rights enjoyed by you and me without having any discrimination. So one very important point, constitution represent the national identity of the people, political identity of the people as well. A very important point that we have to look into. Therefore, student, always understand, a very important point, always understand, constitution is very significant because it always lays the foundation of nation building. अगर आपको कंट्री को और स्ट्रांग करना है तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की जो वैल्यूज है उसी के अकॉर्डिंग चलना पड़ेगा, और उसके अकॉर्डिंग चलोगे तो आपकी आइडेंटिटी और स्ट्रांग होती चली जाएगी. सो आई एम राइटिंग द 8th पॉइंट नाउ, significance of constitution. I'm writing the 8th point, significance of Constitution. Constitution is not only a legal document, not only a legal document, but also very important for nation building. But it is also very, very important for nation building. So for the past 80 years, whether it was Congress or whether it was BJP, whosoever been into the power, they've always make sure, with certain exception of course, which always make sure to have a philosophical working of their government to make sure nation building is going to be there as per the values which are being included in Indian Constitution. So again, a very important point. Please do not ascribe your Constitution as only a legal document. No, not at all. I cannot ascribe my Constitution as only a legal document. केवल कागज का टुकड़ा नहीं है हमारा Constitution, एक किताब नहीं है जो कि मार्केट में 200 रुपए की मिलती है. It is not only a legal document, student, but it is also a document for the vision of this country. Very powerful line that I'm using it. It is not only a legal document, but it is also a document for the larger vision, purpose, and nation building process of this country. If this country has to proceed ahead, if this country has to create a landmark identity in all the countries of the world, we are already having it, we need to consolidate it. It can only be possible with the help of constitutional values. Therefore, constitutional values should never be compromised. Why exactly? Because Constitution is not only a legal document, but it is also very important for a nation building, because Constitution provides, ये इन सारे पॉइंट कनेक्टेड है. Constitution provides the framework of just society. Very important line. Constitution provides the framework of just society. Just society means a society where rights of citizens are protected, society where justice is being delivered. What do we mean by just society? A society where rights are being protected, where rights of the citizens are being protected, and at the same time justice being delivered. Justice being delivered to make sure there is going to be justice to protect those rights of the citizens. So one very important point, one very important provision related to the understanding of the Constitution itself is, it is not a legal document alone. It is not a legal document, but it is also a socio-economic document. It is not only a legal document, it is also a socio-economic document. It is a socio-economic document because it is very important for nation building. कैसे बनाओगे इस देश को? जरा आप इमेजिन करिए कि 26 November 1949 the forefather of our Constitution have enacted the Constitution, have adopted the Constitution, and then they've realized that now we are giving the Constitution to the people of this country. Now people of this country, generations will come, generations will go. I'm here right now, tomorrow I may not be going to be here. You are doing your classes right now, tomorrow you'll be going to get successful, you'll be going to have family, you'll be going to have new generation. Tomorrow we are not going to be here because we all know we are living in a worldly world where everybody has its own shelf life. But a nation has no derived shelf life. Nation should always be going to be there, and nation can only be going to be there when people are going to follow certain values. Those values are there in Constitution. A police official should respect those values. An IAS officer and All India Service officer should respect those values. The Supreme Court, High Court, honorable judges, they should respect those values. And at the same time, student, we need to have those values respected by every citizen of this country, because Constitution significance cannot be limited to a legal document alone. It is not the only the supreme law of the land or fundamental law of the land or only the legal document. It is the larger vision document of our nation building itself. To make sure we are going to have basic justice in our country, to make sure we are going to have just society in our country. So again, a very important point, student, which need to be associated. इसको थोड़ा और elaborate कर दूं? इसको और elaborate कर देता हूं. Constitution we are actually sharing the significance of the word constitution. Constitution, write along with me, embodies का मतलब जो एग्जाम्पल के रूप में यूज किया जाता है, यानी कि उसमें बना हुआ है. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन embodies the vision of founding fathers of our country or founding father of our constitution. So constitution is not only a legal document, it is a vision of those people who were there in the constituent assembly. ये तो कभी सुना होगा ना, constituent assembly होता क्या है? This is something we'll be going to read in the class of Monday and Tuesday. But as of now, there were people in the constituent assembly who were having certain idea of India, who were having certain vision of India. And that particular peculiar vision need to be protected by ordinary citizens like you and me. Because protecting the constitution is not only the duty of the state, it's not only the duty of the judiciary. Judiciary is indeed considered to be the guardian and protector of constitution. But at the same time, we also have certain duties that we need to abide. So by reading the constitution, by understanding the constitution, we can associate this particular point as well. Constitution embodies the vision of founding father of our country and founding father of our constitution. Of course, India does not have any well-described founding father because we've been considered to be the ancient civilization of the world. We are one of the oldest civilization. A total 6 ancient civilizations हैं दुनिया में, उनमें से हम एक हैं. तो हमारी ये जो एंशियंट सिविलाइजेशन है, इसके कई प्रकार के फ्रेगमेंटेशन हुए. नाउ वी हैव अ कंट्री फॉर आवर्स एंड आवर कंट्री हैज़ इट्स ओन आइडेंटिटी बेस्ड अपॉन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. येस, वी आर हैविंग आवर ओन एथनिक आइडेंटिटी, we are having our own religious identity, but beyond that ethnic and religious identity, we have our constitutional identity. So why we need constitution? What is the significance of constitution? Significance of constitution can be understood by this point. Constitution embodies the vision of founding father of our country, embodies the founding father of our constitution. That's a very important point. One more important point, that's going to be point number 10th, which actually describes the significance of constitution. So why constitution is considered to be a very significant socio-economic legal document? The answer is, student, constitution for a country like India, to be very precise, and up to certain extent country like America as well. Constitution of India is basically a living document. It's like a living organism. It's basically a living document. Now, what do we mean by living document? Living document means it is constantly evolving. It is constantly evolving. It is constantly being amended to represent the will of the people. It's a very important line. It's a very, very important tenet, a very important principle which can be associated with constitution. Constitution is considered to be a living document. It like a living organism, student, like a living organism which is going to take place its birth, and as the principle of evolution goes, it is going to have its more evolved organs and it is going to become a full creature. Similarly, constitution is a living organism. Constitution is a living document. Constitution has been constantly evolving for the past so many decades. So many amendments have been done in the constitution to live up to the expectation of the people itself. आप किसे कहते हैं लिविंग डॉक्यूमेंट? लिविंग डॉक्यूमेंट का मतलब है कोई मरी हुई चीज नहीं है, जीवित चीज है. जब चाहे तब लोगों की जरूरतों के अनुसार, एज पर द रिक्वायरमेंट, एज पर द विशेस, एज पर द नीड, एज पर द डिमांड, एज पर द एस्पिरेशन ऑफ द पीपल, which if they are demanding it and parliament is addressing to it, the constitution is going to get amended as per the requirement of the people, as per the need and demand of the people. So constitution is constantly evolving. It is constantly being amended to represent the will of the people. Of course, amendment need to be as per the wishes of the constitutional values as well. And it should be as per the will of the people. Against the will of the people, judiciary is going to strike it down. So one very important point that I want to share with you, as morality of the society will change, as social understanding on various topic is going to get changed, so does the constitutional values which are going to get changed over a period of time. For example, right to privacy. The same Supreme Court, listen to this point very significantly, the same Supreme Court which refuses to acknowledge privacy as a fundamental right way back in the decade of 60s and 70s, यही सुप्रीम कोर्ट है जिसने प्राइवेसी को फंडामेंटल राइट मानने से मना कर दिया था. And the same Supreme Court in the year 2017 decided that no, we were wrong, because constitutional is constantly evolving and the collective will of the people these days who are using social media, who are using media on a very frequently basis, Supreme Court decided that no, privacy is indeed a fundamental right. So the same Supreme Court which refuses to acknowledge privacy as a fundamental right decided to correct herself in the 2017 Justice K.S. Puttaswamy case, under which they have decided that no, privacy is indeed a fundamental right. Therefore, one very important point that you should keep it in your mind, Constitution is a living document. It actually represents the collective social aspiration of the people. Therefore, it can be amended. It can be amended as per the requirement or as per the desire of the people. Of course, desire need to be legitimate as well. अगर desire ये है कि कुछ लोगों को मार के अलग कर दिया जाए तो वो accept नहीं करेंगे, because ऐसी कोई values को हम कभी भी accept नहीं कर सकते. So this is again a very important and the last point for each and every one of you to understand, that Constitution is considered to be a living document in a very appropriate manner. So let's revise each and everything. From here, I've started my journey to give you the very important understanding of significance of Constitution. So I hope you are in a comfort zone right now. Why do we need Constitution? So we've started our discussion with one very important point. What do we mean by Constitution? So the word Constitution derived from two important word etymology of the Constitution says con and stature, which means will of the people. Together people are coming and they are establishing certain rules. So based upon which the Constitution being created in the ancient Rome, or not exactly as a written document but as the understanding of rules. So Constitution is known as supreme law of the land. Constitution is known as the fundamental law of the land. Constitution creates certain principle based upon which the state is going to govern over us. And then comes the major question which I have shared with you. What is the significance of Constitution? So significance of Constitution is to respect this line. थोड़ा सा बैकवर्ड इंटीग्रेशन कर ले, जहां से चालू किया था वहीं पर आ जाते हैं. Why Constitution is very important? The Constitution is very important to respect this particular line, which says in a democracy, people are their own sovereign master. People are independent. People are free from any type of hurdles. They are their own sovereign master. But since they are their own sovereign master, every person's sovereignty, every person individuality, every person right need to be protected. And in order to protect this thing, we require to have a constitution. So Subhash Kashyap says, in democracy, people are their own sovereign master. In order to protect this line, in order to respect this line, we need to have a significance of constitution, and especially in the modern times. And significance of constitution can be described in 10 powerful points. It includes your NCERT as well. Do one thing, आज एक काम कर लेना. अब तो NCERT डाउनलोडेबल है, सब कुछ मिलता ही है. तो आपकी जो 11th क्लास की NCERT है, इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एट वर्क, download it and read the first chapter. I guess you will be more than comfortable to read that particular first chapter right now. Although I have included almost all important points related to that particular chapter with some more proper learning itself. So constitution significance can be associated with 10 different points. Number one, It is a set of basic rules which will ensure minimum coordination among the people so that everybody's sovereign power is going to get respected. Constitution is also very significant because it will decide who holds the power to make rule. Who holds the power to make rule? Of course, government hold the power, but government can hold the power only for 5 years. And after 5 years, there has to be a process where the sovereign masters like you and me are going to decide who are going to be there in the power for coming 5 years. और उसका पूरा process constitution में लिखा होना जरूरी होता है. So constitution describes who are going to hold the power to make rules, who are going to be there in the government to create rules which are very essential to govern over us. That was the first 2 points. Very important point, perhaps the most important point which you have to understand. And you can understand with the theory given by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau has written document known as social contract theory. In political science, a very famous name, Rousseau, along with the political science. History student also read a lot of important inputs related to Rousseau as well. So as per Rousseau, one of the most important point Rousseau has given is Constitution is all about respecting the general will of the people, and general will of the people can only be respected when a state government, central government is going to abide by the principle of doctrine of limited government. The very basic nucleus of Constitution is to have the tying up of the hands of state. You cannot have uncontrolled state which they can interfere in your life every now and then. So therefore we have a doctrine of limited government which says there should be a restriction on the power of government. Government can, very important line, government cannot create arbitrary law. Government cannot create unjust law, unreasonable law and unfair law. और ये रट लो ये शब्द, देखना चाहिए मुझे आंसर में. अभी दूंगा, अभी तो पहला दिन है और पहला दिन है तो अभी हम इनिशियल डेज में हैं, इसलिए थोड़ा रुक रुक के चीज़ें आगे बढ़ा रहा हूँ. आई होप माई पेस इज़ नॉट वेरी हाई. I'm moving in the right direction. I'm taking right now baby steps. Over a period of time, I'm going to increase the nuances of understanding. So please remember these 4 points very essentially. The very basic tenet, the very basic principle of Constitution is to make sure every institution is going to work within certain reach. They should not go beyond their reach. They should not go beyond their powers. They should not go beyond the periphery of the corridors of power. Therefore, doctrine of limited government says government cannot create arbitrary law. Government cannot create unjust, unreasonable and unfair law. That was the point number 3, I guess. And then I've shared point number 4. Constitution represents the collective conscience of the people. I've given you the example of Supriyo Chakravarti, where Supreme Court refused to acknowledge the same-sex marriage as to be a fundamental right, because as per the wisdom of the Supreme Court, अगर सोसाइटी तैयार है सेम सेक्स मैरिज को पूरी तरीके से एक्सेप्ट करने के लिए, तो पार्लियामेंट बनाने लो, हमें क्या दिक्कत है. ये कहा था, रिजेक्ट नहीं किया था, ये कहा था. बट स्टिल सोसाइटी इज नॉट वेरी फुल प्रूफ एंड नॉट वेरी ओपन अप. इट्स अ वेरी टैबू सब्जेक्ट. लोग छुपते हैं इस चीज़ के बारे में डिस्कशन करने के लिए. बट द फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर इज सेम सेक्स orientation is a reality. It is not a medical disease. It's the orientation of a hormonal change, and therefore time is appropriate for our country to actually debate onto this topic. If you are going to debate onto this topic, then maybe after 10-20 years we'll be going to have a condition of same-sex marriage. So Constitution actually represents the collective conscience of the people, collective aspiration of the people regarding rights. It also lays the foundation of certain enabling provision. Enabling provision means government को करना चाहिए. करेगी कैसे? खुद डिसाइड करेगी, लेकिन करना चाहिए कुछ चीजें. So Constitution gives the direction to the government that these are the things that you should do. How you should do, you can decide, but these are the things that you should do. So it is having certain enabling provision, and I've given you a very important terminology. Reservation is the enabling provision in our Constitution. It is not a fundamental right that you can seek, but it is the enabling provision. Enabling provision means government can change, government has the power to create certain principle of providing the reservation. So this is again a very important point. Separation of power is one of the hallmark of Constitution. Number 1, Constitution is also important for representing the collective identity of the people. Number 8, Constitution is not only a legal document, but it is also a very important document for nation building or for the vision of this country. Therefore, I have written, Constitution is very essential, very, very essential to create the principles of just society. Just society का मतलब होता है where justice is not been delivered, but also perceived to be delivered. Justice is not only been delivered but also perceived to be delivered, where you realize that government हमारे लिए ही काम करती है, दिखा नहीं रही है काम करती हुई, हमारे लिए ही काम करती है और करके दिखा भी रही है. And therefore, framework of just society can only be possible with the principle of Constitution. Therefore, we need Constitution. Constitution embodies the vision of founding father of our country. It also embodies the founding principles which are being created in the Constituent Assembly. And last but not the least, point number 10, Constitution is basically a living document. It is constantly evolving, constantly being amended to represent the will of the people or aspiration of the people. So it's again a very important learning for each and every one of us. Let's move ahead. Let's look into one more area. Let me give you a sub-headline. I always teach in this manner, student. I always write headline. It's not like I'm going to just start the topic and from anywhere I'm going to just get it concluded. I will make sure there is going to be a proper notes making exercise, because if you are not going to make the notes, are you supposed to watch this lecture again? No, you are only supposed to watch lecture one time alone. That's it. If you cannot grab the understanding within the instantaneous learning, it means there is certain lacuna which we need to fulfill. So please make sure that whatever that I am teaching it to you right now, whatever that I am asking it to you write in your notebook, you should be very agile to write those content. So whatever that I am going to teach in a process where I'll be going to make notes of yours and I'll be going to finish the syllabus in this manner so that maximum possible things are going to get covered. So let's look into one more area. Constitution as described by various thinkers. So there have been various philosophers, political scientists, greatest political scientists, thinkers of all time, which have given the importance of Constitution, and you can understand the importance given by them. So the first name that is coming to my mind is Plato. So Plato has written a magnum opus known as a Republic. प्लेटो ने एक ग्रंथ लिखा है, एक किताब लिखी है, रिपब्लिक, एंड दैट रिपब्लिक इज ऑल अबाउट that a country or a kingdom can only be ruled by a philosopher king. So he had given a concept of philosopher king. Who is a philosopher king? Philosopher king किसे कहते हैं? Philosopher king उसे कहते हैं the person who is ruling or the person who is running his kingdom based upon his ability, not because he belonged to a very elite family, but based upon his ability, based upon his wisdom, based upon his capacity to provide just society, based upon his capacity to take appropriate decision, based upon his capacity to differ between what is right and what is wrong and what is appropriate for his kingdom. So we need to be ruled by those people who are philosopher king. Philosopher king means जो अपना हित छोड़कर लोगों के हित के लिए कार्य करे. The person who is not thinking about him or her, the person who is not thinking about his nearer or closer one, the person been thinking about the larger aspect of protecting the identity of the people of his kingdom and of course the kingdom identity as well. So Plato has given the magnum opus Republic, and he had given a theory of philosopher king, and as per Plato, we need to have a constitution, because constitution as per Plato is a set of rules. As per Plato, constitution is a set of rules which creates the path for justice, So although at that particular period of time in the ancient Greece, at that particular period of time, the concept of constitution was not even evolved. Even I won't use the word that it was having certain genesis as well. उस समय तो था ही नहीं, लेकिन रूल्स बनने तो चालू हो गए थे कि फिलोसोफर किंग का जो कंसेप्ट आ गया था वही एक तरीके से एक कंसेप्ट था जिसमें प्लेटो कहता था that a king should have a set of rules to create the path for justice. And we all know thinkers like Plato and Aristotle always use this particular term that justice is a virtue. Justice is basically a type of what should I say? We all say justice is a virtue. It's a type of your inherent nature to differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. अगर एक राजा यही सेट ना कर पाए कि किस रूल के अकॉर्डिंग क्या गलत है और क्या सही है, तो फिर वो फिलोसोफर किंग नहीं रह जाएगा और फिर उसकी किंगडम कोलैप्स हो जाएगी. So Plato has written in his magnum opus Republic that constitution, indirectly, not directly as such, constitution is a set of rules which creates the methodology or which creates the path of justice itself. So it's a very important terminology. Moving on to Aristotle. Aristotle is considered to be, not exactly, but considered to be the first person, the first thinker who described what type of constitution are going to be. So as per his theory, there are total 6 type of constitution, but primarily been divided into 2 alone. So Aristotle says there are only 2 type of constitution, right constitution and wrong constitution. Very simple terminology, right constitution and wrong constitution. Some books also say, Aristotle says true constitution. Right constitution also means true constitution. Wrong constitution also means corrupt constitution or a perverted constitution. So as per the wisdom of Aristotle, student, these topics are not very essential. Just because I am teaching it to you doesn't mean that it is definitely going to be there in the exam. It is only there for your larger understanding of the topic. Because after all, whatever constitution that you are witnessing it right now, it has its own roots and genesis in these philosophical thinking as well. तो आज जो आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन देख रहे हो, हजारों साल की मिलेनिया की प्रोसेस के बाद ये बन के तैयार हुआ है, तो उसमें बहुत सारे ऐसी फिलोसॉफिकल एंगल हैं जो कि यहाँ भी देखने को मिलते हैं. So not going to be asked directly in your exam, but you should be slightly aware about it. And Aristotle says that constitution is of 2 types, the right constitution and true constitution, or the wrong constitution or the corrupt constitution. And going by the definition alone, right constitution or true constitution are those constitutions which represent the interest of all citizens, isn't it? Which represent the interest of all citizens. No citizen should be left alone. A constitution can only be considered to be a right or true constitution when it is going to represent the interest of all, each and everyone. And if a constitution is going to represent the welfare of only few families, few chosen families, few selective people, then it is going to be acknowledged as a wrong constitution or corrupt constitution. Both these people, Plato, Aristotle, and of course Socrates as well, these 3 philosophers, these 3 greatest philosophers of all time, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, they all been worried about one thing, which is the corrupt practices which is inculcating into the roots of the civilizational growth of the ancient Greece. So they realize if a kingdom has to maintain its identity, they should abide by certain rules. And if those rules are going to get violated, then kingdom is going to lose its identity. So Aristotle described constitution in 2 manners, right constitution, true constitution, wrong and corrupt constitution, or it is also known as perverted constitution. तो अच्छा सही right constitution वो है which is actually representing the common interest of all, and wrong and corrupt constitution is one which is only representing the interest of few selective people. It is not representing the interest of all, it is only representing the interest of few selective people, and therefore it should be just thrown away. तो selfish constitution जो है वो wrong constitution है, और जो non selfish constitution है सबके interest को represent कर रहा है, it is considered to be the right constitution. So there are 3 words which you must have come across: monarchy, aristocracy, oligarchy. So monarchy is all related to the fact that people from the higher echelons of certain families are going to become the ruler. Monarchy, राजशाही, राजा के घर के लोग ही रूल करेंगे. Aristocracy means some elite people are going to rule, and oligarchy means those people who are having their own personal interest will rule. So keeping these three things in mind, monarchy, aristocracy and oligarchy, I hope you've heard about oligarchy. अच्छा, कुछ वर्ड ऐसे होते हैं जिनका लेना देना पढ़ाई लिखाई से ज़्यादा नहीं है, लेकिन वो पता ज़रूर होने चाहिए. And oligarchy is one such word. So oligarchy means rule of few selective people who are working not for the larger causes or larger interests, but they are working for their own interest. And similarly, you have the word aristocracy. Aristocracy is slightly different. Aristocracy is not always negative. Aristocracy means rule of certain elite class people, certain elite intellect, certain elite families people. And monarchy, as you all know, whether you are good, whether you are bad, if you belong to a royal family, then being born into the royal family will give you the power to be there in the kingdom itself. So ये जो प्लेटो था, एरिस्टोटल था, सोक्रेटिस था, इनको ऐसा लगता था कि एंशियंट ग्रीस की आइडेंटिटी को बनाए रखने के लिए इट्स वेरी वेरी एसेंशियल, इट्स वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू मेक श्योर the concept of monarchy, oligarchy and aristocracy need to be understood well by the people, and they should make sure that there is going to be certain set of rules based upon which the people are going to rule over us. So constitution is described by various thinkers. Number one is Plato, number two is Aristotle, one more important philosopher, Cicero. So Cicero has given the concept of ideal republicanism. He had given the concept of ideal republicanism. Concept ideal republic. अब ये वर्ड्स पर भी मत जाओ, रिपब्लिक का मतलब क्या होता है, वी आर गोइंग टू डील विथ इट लेटर ऑन. बट he was more worried about the theory of ideal republic, which is going to be considered as ideal republic. So he was there in ancient Rome, and his theory was more related to which is going to be the ideal republic. So he has given a very unique theory, and which unique theory is ideal republic is that republic which is having a constitution, and constitution should support a mixed government. A mixed government. I'm sharing these things for the larger sake of learning of the topic itself. It is not going to be directly there in the exam, but little bit of understanding of this topic is very, very essential. So Cicero gave the concept of constitution, and as per him, ideal republic is that republic which is having a parameter of mixed government. What do we mean by mixed government? Mixed government means उसमें तीनों चीज़ों का combination है. A little bit of monarchy, little bit of aristocracy, and little bit of democracy. So you need not to write, just listen to this part. He gave this theory, a little bit of monarchy, a little bit of democracy, and a little bit of aristocracy is very much required for a kingdom or for an identity or for a civilization to be there for a longer period of time. So this was the theory related to Cicero. But student, these ancient theories does not really matter to our preparation. What really matter is the theory given by John Locke. A very, very important theory. John Locke prescribed the idea of constitution in a very appropriate manner, and his idea of constitution is still being studied by various thinkers, whether they are from the political science field or whether they are from the legal field itself. So John Locke has written a magnum opus. He's written a very famous book in the year 1699, Two Treatises on Government. और उसने एक थ्योरी दी थी जॉन लॉक ने, थ्योरी ऑफ नेचुरल राइट, विच इज समथिंग आई विल बी गोइंग टू शेयर विथ यू लेटर ऑन. बट एज ऑफ नाउ, जॉन लॉक. So who was John Locke? Let me show it to you. John Locke is considered to be most important theorist in the field of law and in the field of political science. Very, very important, very, very essential. Actually, he was the one who used to describe what should be the relationship between state and citizens. हम citizen हैं, हमारे ऊपर स्टेट बैठा हुआ है, तो स्टेट और सिटीजन के बीच में क्या रिलेशनशिप होना चाहिए, मेरे कुछ राइट है, स्टेट के कुछ राइट है, उनमें क्लैश नहीं होना चाहिए, स्टेट की ड्यूटी क्या है, मेरी ड्यूटी क्या है, इन सबको बहुत डिस्क्राइब करने की कोशिश की थी एट दैट पर्टिकुलर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम व्हेन यूरोप वाज गोइंग थ्रू अ पीरियड ऑफ एनलाइटनमेंट. Europe was about to enter into the modern era, and it was the ending stage of the Enlightenment. At that particular stage, John Locke described the theory of natural right. He is very famous, or considered to be the founding father of the principle of natural right. And in his famous work of 1699, the two treaties on government, he actually described the importance of constitution. Why do we need to have a constitution? So you can use this particular theory that I'm going to write. तो आप use कर लेना इसको अपने आंसर में. So John Locke says that we need to have a liberal constitution. Liberal का मतलब है समय के अनुसार, as per the requirement of time, it is going to get upgraded, it is going to get amended. So he propounded the theory. Propounded का मतलब होता है समझाना. Propounded, P-R-O-P-O-U-N-D-E-D. So he propounded the theory of liberal constitutionalism. And as per him, as per John Locke, a liberal constitution is a one which is having two important future. Number one, a future of limited government, which I have already shared with you. So as per John Locke, one important aspect of constitution is to have a limited government, and the second important aspect is separation of power, which I guess you have already written in the significance of constitution. So this is the relevance of John Locke. So John Locke is considered to be a very important personality to describe the relevance of constitution. His actual theory is related to natural right, which I'll be going to share with you later on in my discussion in, I guess, next week discussion. So John Locke discussion. Now comes the second thinker, second important thinker. Montesquieu. Montesquieu is considered to be the foremost important thinker that put its primary focus on the principle of separation of power. As per him, between different branches of state or government, there should be a separation of power. So remember this point. He propounded the theory of doctrine of separation of power. Please write somewhere in your notebook. He propounded the theory of doctrine of separation of power. Montesquieu. ये थोड़ा सा स्पेलिंग मैंने गलत कर दिया, मैं थोड़ा सा इसे सही कर लेता हूँ. Montesquieu. So Montesquieu propounded the theory of doctrine of separation of power. Why do we need a doctrine of separation of power? I'm asking it in front of you. Why exactly we need a separation of power? We need to have a separation of power in order to make sure there is going to be checks and balances, and at the same time there should not be any corrupt practices by any institution. Judiciary, लेजिस्लेचर, एग्जीक्यूटिव, सबकी पावर वेल डिफाइन हो, सब एक दूसरे में इंटरफियर ना करें और चेक्स एंड बैलेंसेस बने रहे. दैट्स अ डिफरेंट स्टोरी दैट अनफॉर्चुनेटली इंटरफेरेंस डू टेक प्लेस, and these are the modern day debates that we have to address in our larger classes. So Montesquieu propounded the theory of doctrine of separation of power to make sure that the corrupt practices in the state functioning is not going to be there. So again, a very essential one. Moving on. Should I write it over here? I guess I should write it over here. Rousseau. I have already shared his theory with you. And as per Rousseau, Rousseau written the theory of social contract. He propounded the idea of social contract. So Rousseau, like John Locke, Rousseau is also one of the biggest supporter of the rights of the people, and rights of the people and liberties of the people. So as per Rousseau, constitution should be one such document which represent the general will of the people. इसको कहीं लिख देता हूँ यार मैं. As per Rousseau, constitution should represent the general will of the people. A very simple line which you can use it in your answers. These are the core argument that you have to use it in your answer. Constitution should be created, should be based upon the general will of the people. Unless it is not been representing the general will, it is never going to get appreciated. So it's a very important point that we have to look into. And last but not the least, student, from today itself, this is your first session itself. And today itself, I'm using a lot of case laws, a lot of Supreme Court laws, which are very essential for your overall understanding and writing of the answer itself. So apart from various thinkers, I'm sharing two important Supreme Court cases as well, where importance of Constitution is being well defined within the values of the Constitution itself by Honorable Supreme Court itself. So please write Justice Puttaswamy case. In the year 2017, Supreme Court in Justice Puttaswamy case defined Constitution to be a transformative document. A very important, of course, Indian Constitution, because it is related to India. So Indian Constitution. So as per Justice Puttaswamy case, Indian Constitution is a transformative constitution. What do we mean by transformative constitution? Transformative constitution means बदल रहा है समय के साथ, धीरे धीरे चेंज होता रहता है. It's a transformative constitution, and transformative constitution actually means it actually represent the philosophy of constitution being a living document. What a beautiful line that has been used by Justice Kaul in the Justice Puttaswamy case. Who was Justice Puttaswamy? Justice Puttaswamy, if I'm not wrong, he was a Kerala High Court judge. And he pleaded in front of Supreme Court, and he asked Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court, that please acknowledge privacy as a fundamental right. So always remember, in your answer writing, these type of terminologies really going to make a real difference compared to the other people. How the examiner is going to separate the wheat from the chaff. It's all about your argument. It's all about your critical argument. So in the year 2017, in the Justice Puttaswamy case, Honorable Supreme Court acknowledged Indian Constitution to be a transformative constitution. Why transformative? As per the requirement, as per the will, as per the aspiration, as per the desire of the people of our country, Constitution is going to get realigned, or it is going to get reassociated. There are certain words in the Constitution. These words can be described once again truly into a different manner altogether. So as per the wisdom of Article 21, which is all about right to life, ये तो पता ही होता है, जीवन जीने का अधिकार, right to life. So as per the aspirations of Article 21, right to life cannot be possible without having a privacy as a fundamental right as well. So the same Supreme Court which refused to acknowledge privacy as a fundamental right way back in the decade of 17s, later on rectify its mistakes, and in the year 2017 they have given each and every one of us privacy as a fundamental right. And therefore one of the landmark case of India's Supreme Court history is Justice Puttaswamy case, where Indian Constitution has been acknowledged as the transformative constitution, where it is going to live up to the expectation of being a living document. जीवित तो हो, इसके सबूत भी तो दो. जिंदा हो ना तुम, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हो तुम, जिंदा हो, इसके सबूत दो. और सबूत यह है कि कल तक मैं प्राइवेसी को नहीं मानता था फंडामेंटल राइट, आज मान रहा हूं. और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है क्या, उसकी इंटरप्रिटेशन वी ऑल नो. Supreme Court is the only authority that can do. So it's a very important line that we have to look into. And of course, student, there is one very famous case of Supreme Court history, Minerva Mill case as well. It's very early days for you. Today is your first class. अब आप ये मत सोचिए कि फर्स्ट क्लास में बच्चे वाली चीज़ें होंगी. अरे पढ़ाने ही कितना है भाई, 65 क्लासेस लूँगा, थोड़ा बहुत खींच दूंगा तो शायद 65 क्लासेस तक कंप्लीट करने की कोशिश करूँगा. येस स्टूडेंट, आई विल बी गोइंग टू टेक 60 क्लासेस बिकॉज आई बिलीव द काइंड ऑफ टॉपिक दीज डेज वी आर विटनेसिंग, इट विल टेक सम टाइम्स टू मास्टर इट, बिकॉज आई एम नॉट वन ऑफ दोज टीचर हु इज गोइंग टू कंक्लूड माई सिंसियर टॉपिक ऑफ इंडियन पॉलिटी एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन विद इन 30-35 सेशन. आई विल बी गोइंग टू टेक सम टाइम टू हैव मोर डिस्कशन विथ यू, एंड दीज डिस्कशंस आर गोइंग टू बी फॉर्मली इंटैक्ट इन अ नोटबुक फॉर द लार्जर प्रिपरेशन. तो अब ये मत सोचो कि पहली क्लास में बच्चे वाली चीज़ें होंगी. नहीं, पहली क्लास का मतलब ये है कि अब हम आ गए प्रोसेस में, अब हमें लड़ना चालू करना है. So in the year 1980, a very landmark case was there in the Minerva Mill case. And without getting into the technical detail of Minerva Mill case, Supreme Court acknowledged that Constitution, Indian Constitution of course, Indian Constitution represents will of the people through two provision. Represent will of the people through two provision. Number one, fundamental rights, and number two, directive principle of state policies. DPSP, फंडामेंटल राइट एंड DPSP. अच्छा, फंडामेंटल राइट और DPSP नहीं लिखना है तो थोड़ा सा और एलैबोरेट कर देता हूँ. In the Minerva Mill case, Constitution interpretation by Supreme Court realized that Indian Constitution is only going to hold its value if it is going to represent the will of the people, aspiration of the people, and aspiration of the people are very well included in two sections of our Constitution. Number one, section number 3, which is related to the fundamental right, and section number 4, which is related to the directive principle of state policy, which is all about welfare provision that the state will do, certain enabling provision. So keeping this thing in mind, student, this is the basic building blocks related to the understanding of Constitution. So I hope in this, no, I'm not winding it up. I'm still having time right now. I'm just giving you the ending of the part 1 of unit number 2. So I've just shared with you the importance of Constitution, the significance of Constitution, relevance of Constitution, certain pillars of the Constitution. So Constitution is considered to be the supreme law of the land, and those important 10 points which are very, very essential for our basic understanding about the importance of Constitution, which includes India as well. So I hope you are comfortable with the understanding of Constitution. And in my last section, as I've shared with you, thinkers like John Locke, thinkers like Montesquieu, thinkers like Rousseau, इन सब ने Constitution की importance को समझाया है और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के सिग्निफिकेंस को समझाया है. इन्होंने बताया है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इसलिए ज़रूरी है क्योंकि लिमिटेड गवर्नमेंट और सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर करना ज़रूरी है. और रूसो ने यह समझाया है कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इसलिए ज़रूरी है बिकॉज कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक्चुअली इज द डॉक्यूमेंट टू रिप्रेजेंट जनरल विल ऑफ द पीपल और कंसेंट ऑफ द पीपल और एस्पिरेशन ऑफ द पीपल. So, and it has been well acknowledged in a very famous 2017 just a Puttaswamy case as well, which is all related to the fact that privacy been acknowledged as fundamental right. और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा था कि भैया हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कोई रिजिड डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं है, चेंज हो सकता है, अपना नेचर चेंज कर सकता है, कुछ वैल्यूज बचाए रख के नेचर चेंज कर सकता है. देयरफॉर इट इज अ ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव डॉक्यूमेंट एज वेल. मूविंग ऑन, let's look into the next concept. So please give the headline, meaning of constitutionalism. Meaning of constitutionalism. A very important topic, meaning of constitutionalism. So let me give you one example. What is the basic difference between India and Pakistan? What is the primary difference between India and Pakistan? Of course, there are hell amount of difference. The one of the foremost difference between India and Pakistan is we've got a very formidable cricket team, and Pakistan cricket team is one of the shittiest cricket team of all time. They've got a very rich legacy. They used to be having a rich legacy when they used to beat us very badly in the decade of 90s. But right now, the kind of cricket team that they're having it, I have to say there is a huge difference between India and Pakistan in terms of the cricketing skills right now. But jokes apart, what is the primary difference between India and Pakistan constitutionally? Let me write it. Does India have a constitution? Yes, we have a constitution. Yes, we do have a constitution. Does Pakistan have a constitution? Yes, they also have a constitution. But India has one more thing, and that is constitutionalism. India has one more thing, which is constitutionalism, and Pakistan does not have constitutionalism. And it can be easily evident, it can be easily understood by the empirical evidence that Pakistan has gone through the dictatorship of General Yahya Khan, General Ayub Khan, General Pervez Musharraf, and God knows if Asim Munir is going to be the next one. So please understand, there is a big difference between a constitution and constitutionalism. A country can have constitution, but they can still have a dictator in their country. Even North Korea can have a constitution. Even there are so many countries of the world with which they have supposedly certain rules to govern the people, but they lack the vision of constitutionalism. And please understand, constitution is important, but more relevant or more important is the philosophy of constitutionalism. So what is the basic difference between constitution and constitutionalism? Constitution gives power to various organs of the government. Constitution gives power to various organs of the government, and at the same time it recognizes the need for the government. So constitution and constitutionalism has a different. Constitution give power to the government, but constitutionalism gives sanctity or some type of sanctity means relevance or some type of objective for the government to use those power, which primarily means a government can derive its power from constitution, but government should use this power through the basic philosophy of constitutionalism. Write this statement or read this statement multiple times. A government, I hope you are writing it. A government derive its power from constitution. A government derive its power from constitution, but it should use those power, based on the philosophy of constitutionalism. Based on the philosophy of constitutionalism. So there is a difference between constitution and constitutionalism. We do not want to live in a country which is only known for its constitution. We should also give a primary focus to a country which actually respect the values of constitutionalism as well. So what do we mean by constitutionalism? Let's look into it one by one. So first of all, if you want to write in this manner, you can write basic tenets. Tenets का मतलब होता है प्रिंसिपल. तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म के प्रिंसिपल क्या होते हैं? बेसिक टेनेट्स ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म इज इट रिकॉग्नाइज द नीड फॉर गवर्नमेंट. It recognize the need for government. We all know, we all need government na. If we are not going to have the government over us, then our sovereign identity, then our sovereign power of being an individual is never going to get maintained. So it recognize the need for government कि government होनी चाहिए. But उससे ज़्यादा important है, it recognize the limited power of government. It recognize the limited power of government or limited power to be enjoyed by a government. So basic tenet of constitutionalism is it requires the need for government, it recognizes the limited power of government, and it also makes sure that the legislature and executive, I'm writing in short form, I hope you are all going to write along with me. It also recognizes one important point. Constitutionalism, after all the word ISM is there, which is a political ideology or a legal ideology. So constitutionalism means it recognizes the fact legislature and executive have certain power, but at the same time, legislature and executive should have certain control or restraint as well. तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म कहता है कि लेजिस्लेचर और एग्जीक्यूटिव के पास पावर होगी, बट पावर अनकंट्रोल्ड नहीं होगी, पावर अनलिमिटेड नहीं होगी, पावर थोड़ी सी लिमिटेड होगी, थोड़ी सी कंट्रोल्ड होगी, ताकि सिटीजन्स के राइट्स पर इंटरफेरेंस ना हो सके. सो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म सेज लेजिस्लेचर एंड एग्जीक्यूटिव should have power, but it should be well checked and balanced. I hope you are writing along with me, but it should be well checked and balanced, which primarily means power should not be arbitrary. It primarily means power should not be arbitrary. Power should not have unrestricted control. So I'm writing first point. I have already written the first point. Basic tenet of constitutionalism is it recognizes the need for government. It recognizes the limited power of government. It recognizes that legislature, executive, or any institution of the government or any institution in a country have certain power, but it should be well checked and balanced. So where is the problem with Pakistan? Pakistan is a country. Pakistan has a constitution, but there is one institution in Pakistan which is having uncontrolled power, where the people's rights have been completely destroyed by the dictators. Therefore, the basic difference between India and Pakistan, both got its genesis on almost the same day, but one country is having a constitution as well as constitutionalism. The other country is only having a constitution and it lack the vision of constitutionalism. And therefore, the difference is almost 10 times in terms of GDP. Geopolitically, geostrategically, Pakistan is always going to become a cynosure of the global politics, but fact of the matter is there is a huge difference, and the difference is we respect constitutionalism and they lack it. तो constitutionalism का मतलब होता है गवर्नमेंट की नीड होती है कुछ, उसको समझना, पर गवर्नमेंट को अनलिमिटेड पावर नहीं देना. Recognize the limited power of government, and the point number C says legislature and executive should have power, but it should be well checked and balanced. A very important point. One more important terminology. Let me write it over here. Constitutionalism. Constitutionalism also means, a student, please write along with me. Constitutionalism also means there should be no unrestricted power. There should be no unrestricted power. ऐसा नहीं है कि आपके पास ताकत है और आप पूरी ताकत का इस्तेमाल कभी भी किसी भी समय कर सकते हैं. इट्स नेवर गोइंग टू बी लाइक दिस वन. देयर शुड बी नो अनरेस्ट्रिक्टेड पावर, विच मीन्स there should be no absolute power. And I hope this term you must have come across in lot of debates, or maybe lot of writings of yours, or maybe lot of reading of important editorials of newspaper. अभी अगर पढ़ना चालू किया हो तो कभी न कभी सुना होगा, और कभी शायद ऐसे राइटिंग भी की होगी स्कूल में, पावर करप्ट एंड एब्सोल्यूट पावर करप्ट एब्सोल्यूटली. Power corrupt and absolute power corrupt absolutely. It's a very important line you must have gone through multiple times in your reading as well. Power corrupt, but absolute power corrupt absolutely. And therefore you require a constitutionalism. Constitutionalism will make sure there should be no unrestricted power. We need to have a restricted power. We need not to have an unrestricted power. If we are going to have an unrestricted power, then either legislature, then either executive, or either judiciary, or the institution of this country are going to destroy the basic values of constitution, basic values of democracy. Therefore, constitutionalism is more important than constitution. Please understand this point. Every country can have a constitution, but it's the culture of constitutionalism which is very important. It's a question that I'm framing it right now. A country can have a constitution, but it's the culture of constitutionalism which creates the identity of a country. बन गया ना क्वेश्चन एक? अभी नहीं लिखना है, अभी नहीं लिखना है, बताऊंगा कब लिखना है. A country can have a constitution, but it's the culture of constitutionalism which actually creates the identity of a country. So, Pakistan as a country is a very powerful country in terms of its geopolitics, in terms of its military, but it is perhaps the only country in the world where our military as an institution is having uncontrolled power. And any country which is having different institution which is having uncontrolled power is going to get doomed. उस देश का विध्वंस होना तय है जिस देश में कुछ संस्थाओं के पास अनियंत्रित शक्तियां होती हैं. A country which is having uncontrolled power given to certain institution, those countries are going to get doomed or failed over a period of time. Pakistan is indeed the example of it. So, Why do you need constitutionalism? I have already described it to you that constitutionalism is all about realizing the importance of having government, realizing the importance of power being given to government and institution, but at the same time there has to be certain checks and balances. We cannot have uncontrolled power. So constitutionalism primarily means there should be no unrestricted power and no arbitrary power. नो आर्बिट्रेरी पावर. आर्बिट्रेरी पावर मतलब बिना सोचे समझे जो डिसीजन लेना चाहे ले लो. नो, डिस्ट्रिक्ट मजिस्ट्रेट शुड हैव अ पावर, but district magistrate should not have a arbitrary power. District magistrate should have a power, it is a constitutional value. But district magistrate should not have absolute power, it is a constitutionalism. So please understand, instead of having constitution, a country need constitutionalism. Therefore, Baba Ambedkar, B.R. Ambedkar, used to say one statement, the day he was full-proofed to enact the constitution, वो कहते थे 26 नवंबर 1949 को, we are giving this August House, this Constituent Assembly is giving constitution to the citizen of this country. But it is the culture of constitutionalism that need to be protected, that need to be guided. Because even a bad constitution, understand, even a bad constitution will live up to the expectation of the people if constitutionalism is one of the basic identity of the people. हमारी कंट्री में इंस्टीट्यूशंस जो हैं वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बिना भी काम कर सकती हैं अगर वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म की फिलॉसफी को समझती हैं. और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म की फिलॉसफी कहती है पावर यूज करो, लेकिन पावर आर्बिट्रेरी नहीं होनी चाहिए. इट शुड नॉट बी अनकंट्रोल्ड, इट शुड नॉट बी अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड, इट शुड नॉट बी अनफेयर, इट शुड नॉट बी अनरीजनेबल, इट शुड नॉट बी वन डायमेंशनल, इट शुड रिस्पेक्ट ऑल एंड इट शुड बी हैविंग इट्स ओन लिमिटेशन. सो दिस इज व्हाट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म इज ऑल अबाउट. थोड़ा और लिखते हैं. One more important point. Constitutionalism is antithesis of arbitrary power. थोड़ी सी डिफिकल्ट अंग्रेजी. Please write. Constitutionalism is antithesis of arbitrary power. Antithesis of arbitrary power means any institution which is trying to enjoy or trying to initiate the process of arbitrary power, constitutionalism will struck it down. So जब हमारे जजेस होते हैं ना, तो जज आपने देखा होगा बहुत सारे यूट्यूब पर जजेस के वीडियो पड़े हुए हैं और वो एसपी साहब से पूछते हैं कैसे आपने इनको थाने में बिठा लिया, कैसे आपने इनको अरेस्ट कर लिया, किस पावर से कर लिया. जब ये पूछते हैं ना तो बेसिकली वो यही सोच रखते हैं दैट यू हैव द पावर बट इट शुड नॉट बी अनरेस्ट्रिक्टेड पावर. एंड इफ अ पुलिस ऑफिशियल in a local police station, if a district magistrate, if a chief minister, if a council of minister, if prime minister, if president, if all of them are going to use their power within a limit, it is always appreciated. But if it is going to cross the limit, then it is going to be acknowledged as unrestricted power. And therefore, the word constitutionalism is very important. Constitutionalism is antithesis of arbitrary power. So a country needs constitution, but it needs more of constitutionalism. So this again a very important point, antithesis of arbitrary power. And constitutionalism put restrained. It put restraint. Restraint means restriction. It put restraint and restrictions on the use of, put restriction, restraint on the use of unlimited power. Limited power you can use, but you cannot use unlimited power. This is the beauty of constitutionalism. Can I give one example of constitutionalism? Yes, one of the most important example of constitutionalism is the very important chapter in history of the world, Magna Carta. मैग्ना कार्टा. मैग्ना कार्टा का एक हिस्ट्री है. मैग्ना कार्टा क्या था? ब्रिटेन में किंग जॉन हुआ करते थे और ही पुट हाई टैक्सेस बिकॉज ब्रिटेन एट दैट पर्टिकुलर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम वॉज बीन रन बाय थ्री सेट ऑफ पीपल. यू हैव द फ्यूडल लॉर्ड्स, यू हैव द किंग एंड यू हैव द पोप. एंड वी ऑल नो during the period of around 1200 or period related to it, it was a period where some feudal lords were dominating. And when feudal lords were dominating, the King John has realized that there is going to be a situation of civil war. There is going to be a condition where some people, where some lord, where some group of people are going to overthrow him, or they may be going to enshrine a reign of terror. हमारे पर हमला कर देंगे, हमारे ऊपर पूरी तरीके से आक्रमण कर देंगे, or they are going to take away the power that we are enjoy. So therefore, a Magna Carta theory been propounded at that particular period of time, and Magna Carta theory says there should not be arbitrary power. Even king is not above the law. So what is Magna Carta? I'm writing with green marker. Magna Carta says there should be no arbitrary, I hope I'm writing in short form, it makes sense to you. There should be no arbitrary power, and even a king is not above the law. It means even king has to subdue himself within the parameter of law itself. Even king is not above the law. So this is the beauty of Magna Carta. Magna Carta plays a very important role in the evolution of constitution. So constitutionalism, student, is being well described by these principles itself. So understand with this particular manner. Constitutionalism means there should be no arbitrary power. Even if some institution trying to use those arbitrary power, it is going to get checked and balances by the judiciary itself. It should be respected by the judiciary itself. And therefore, student, a very important term that I'm using it over here, it is constitutionalism is antithesis of arbitrary power. And the example of constitutionalism is the Magna Carta Treaty, which says there should be no arbitrary power. Even a king is not above the law. Those laws which are there, it has to make sure that any monarchy system, any king are not going to be above the law itself. So therefore, Magna Carta initially plays a very important role in the evolution of constitution during the medieval times, during the pre-modern times, and later on during the modern times as well. So this is again a very important theory that we have to look into. Let me give you one more example of constitutionalism. One of the best example of constitutionalism is, student, the USA Constitution or the American Constitution. So American Constitution has a very important statement. पहले तो superficial बताता हूँ. A very important statement in the American Constitution says all men and women are same and nobody is above the law. As per the wisdom which is being well enshrined in the American Constitution, it says all men and women are same and nobody is above the law. So this is basically a philosophy which has been well enshrined in the values of American Constitution and later on been added in the Indian Constitution as well. But in American Constitution, there is one very specific terminology that have been used, which actually describe the basic principle of constitutionalism. And I would request you to write that particular statement very sincerely and write it that I'm dictating it to you right now. As per, I hope you will write right now. As per American Constitution, which is a written organic instrument, 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 under which government being given power, under which government been given power or conferred power, but these power are circumscribed as well. What a beautiful line in order to describe the theory of constitutionalism. As per American Constitution, which is considered to be the written organic instrument, government being given power और government being conferred power, government को शक्तियां दी जाती हैं, government being given power और government being conferred power, but these power are circumscribed as well, but उन शक्तियों को घेरा लगा लिया जाता है, उनके आगे बाउंड्री खींच दी जाती है, which means you have to use this power within the ambit of the circumscribed boundary itself. And this is the definition of American Constitution, constitutionalism as well. Because please understand, we need to have a limitation of powers of authority. We need to have a limitation of powers of authority. We need to have a limitation of powers of authority, because if we are not going to have the limitation of powers of authority, not only constitutionalism is going to get destroyed, but the basic values, basic premise which are there in the constitution are also going to get completely obliterated. Therefore, student, a very important line that I want to use it over here is constitutionalism actually represent the basic principle under which there is going to be limitation of the powers of authority as being depicted by Professor M.J. Weil. He is considered to be a very important personality in political science and of course in legal fraternity, Professor Weil, Professor M.J. Weil. और M.J. Weil कहते हैं कि constitutionalism का मतलब है limitation of powers of authority. So would you like to live in a country where there is a constitution but there is no constitutionalism? I'm asking it to you. Would you like to live in a country where there is a constitution but there is no constitutionalism? Answer is a strictly no, because you never know when the authorities are going to use their unlimited power. In India, we have a country which is being well respected with the virtues of the constitution, and it is having a value of constitutionalism as well. So constitutionalism is basically the principle under which the doctrine of limited government is going to get well respected. And please take my word, it's a question that you can do it later on in your preparation. A country need more of constitutionalism rather than constitution. And if a country is being well protected with the philosophy of constitutionalism, then people's rights are going to get well protected. One more important area, I should start. At least I have 5 minutes right now. At least I'm going to take my session for, although it's very difficult for any individual to sit in front of tab or a computer or mobile for at least a period of 2.5 hours. But a student, due to the limitation of time, of course, सुविधा मिल गई है अब ऑनलाइन क्लास करने की, लेकिन ऑफलाइन में 3-3.5 घंटे की पढ़ाई हो सकती है, ऑनलाइन थोड़ा दिक्कत होती है, बट करना पड़ेगा स्टूडेंट, बिकॉज आई हैव टू dictate lot many important inputs with you. Therefore, I'm elaborating or stretching my session a bit. So let me just introduce it to you. Doctrine of rule of law. So doctrine of rule of law. I hope you must have heard about this statement multiple times, that we need to have a rule of law. We should not have, we need to have a rule of law. We should not have rule of men. We should not have a rule of men. So now होगा ना कभी कभी that we need to have a rule of law, we need not to have a rule of men. Why exactly we need to have a rule of law? Because rule of law will make sure that the principle of constitutionalism are going to get well protected. What is the basic difference between constitution and constitutionalism? Please understand, constitutionalism is more required than the constitution. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है ज़रूरी, लेकिन उससे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म, और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म को बनाए रखने के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी होता है रूल ऑफ लॉ. So all these three words are well integrated. We need to have a constitution, but beyond that we need to have a constitutionalism. As Ambedkar used to say, that even bad constitution will do wonders for the society if people or who are sitting at the government position are actually following the philosophy of constitutionalism. And even a good constitution will turn out to be a complete failure if people who are sitting in the position of government or power are absolutely corrupt. Therefore, it's not the constitution which will bring change in your life. It's the constitutionalism which is all about having a principle of a limited power and at the same time putting a restraint on the use of arbitrary power. And in order to have constitutionalism, we need to have a doctrine of rule of law. और ये statement बड़ा common है law की language में. We should have a rule of law rather than a rule of men. कई बार देखा होगा ना, एक SDM पहुंच गया कि तोड़ो तोड़ो दुकान तोड़ो, बुलडोजर चलाएंगे यहाँ पर, ये अवैध है. और आप खड़े हो कि नहीं नहीं मेरा नक्शा पास है, सब कुछ है, और नहीं बस SDM ने बोल दिया तो फिर आप उसके आगे क्या कर लेंगे क्योंकि पुलिस वाले खड़े हुए हैं. And then when the matter landed up in court, the honorable judges will always say this thing: this country deserves to have a rule of law rather than few chosen rule of men. And in order to understand this particular point, we need to understand the doctrine of rule of law. So doctrine of rule of law is being given by the legendary thinker in the field of law itself, Dicey. So who gave the theory of doctrine of rule of law? The doctrine of rule of law is being given by the Dicey, and in the year 1885 he written a book which is related to the study of law and constitution itself. Let me just show it to you. So if you are going to type Dicey rule of law, you will be going to come across definitions related to it. So you'll be going to have a lot of important definitions which are being well associated. I'm going to write these terms, just wait for a minute. So this Google description is saying, Dicey's rule of law is a legal philosophy. Of course, it's a legal philosophy with three basic principles: supremacy of law, equality before the law, and predominance of the legal spirit. Now this term, equality before the law, predominance of the legal spirit, these are all the things which actually made a constitution as a valid constitution. So constitution should always be dependent onto the principle of rule of law as well. So rule of law is actually being divided into three important parameters. Number one, as per the rule of law, there should be equality before the law. What do we mean by rule of law? Rule of law actually means equality before the law. Equality before the law is something you will be going to read in Article 14 as well. It is one of the component of Article 14. अब आप लोग ये मत सोचना सर equality, equity में difference क्या होता है, ये सारी चीजें आएंगी. I'm going to share all these things later on as well, because as the discussion is going to get proceed ahead, you'll be going to learn a lot. I hope in today's session you are good enough to now describe what is constitution, what are the significance of constitution, what is constitutionalism. Now let us look into this part as well. So what do we mean by rule of law? Rule of law means there should be a complete respect for the equality before the law, irrespective of prime minister or a local babu or an ordinary citizen like me. They all are going to be treated as same in front of law. Chahe raja ho, chahe rank ho, they all are going to be having the same type of respect, same type of identity in front of the law. No man is above the law. So irrespective of his or her rank, a person identity is not going to get defined. Of course, there are going to be certain exceptions, but Dicey's rule of law say equality before the law. Number one. Number two, equality before the law. Apart from that, rule of law also means absence of arbitrary power. Arbitrary power. There should not be any arbitrary power. If there is going to be arbitrary power, which means a single dimensional power being utilized by one executive or one legislature, then under this situation, it is going to be known as abuse of power. And any abuse of power is against the spirit of rule of law, against the spirit of constitutionalism. So one second aspect of rule of law is absence of arbitrary power. There should be no scope, no philosophy, no parameter of arbitrary power in the study of rule of law. Last but not the least, Avidice's rule of law also says rule of law means respect for individual liberties. Respect for individual liberties. Respect for individual liberties means every person's identity, every person's rights need to be respected by the institution which are actually governing this country. So, respect for individual liberty. This is the complete point. Respect for individual liberty. So, please understand, student. Please reconnect all the point that I've shared with you. If a country is being run based upon the rule of law, which means everybody is treated equal, एवरीबडी लिबर्टी. अब दिमाग में आ रहा होगा सर लिबर्टी क्या होता है, ये पढ़ाएंगे आपको, आती जाएंगी चीज़ें. लिबर्टी, इक्वालिटी, फ्रेटर्निटी, दीज आर ऑल द थिंग्स दैट यू आर गोइंग टू लर्न. बट एज ऑफ नाउ लर्न द, अभी बेसिक फिलोसफी ये नहीं पढ़ाना है, लिबर्टी ये पढ़ाना है. तो पहले इसको कंप्लीट कर लेते हैं. सो इफ अ कंट्री इज बीन रन बाय द बेसिक पैरामीटर्स ऑफ रूल ऑफ लॉ, इट मीन्स देयर इज अ प्रिंसिपल ऑफ इक्वालिटी बिफोर द लॉ, absence of arbitrary power is there, respect for individual liberty is there, and any country which is been run on the basis of rule of law, it means they are actually following the philosophy of constitutionalism. And if a country is following the philosophy of constitution, then indirectly they are living up to those 10 tenets of constitution which are very essential or significant for a nation to have its own identity. So these are all the things for today's session, and let me go to the slide as well. Let me go to the internet as well. So as you can see, Avidice rule of law means supremacy. Okay. It means supremacy of the law. Supremacy of the law means equality before the law. No one is above the law. And equality before the law, all individuals are going to be get treated, and there should be no arbitrary power, and of course predominance of the legal spirit. Predominance of the legal spirit primarily means, predominance of the legal spirit means that you are going to have a condition where no arbitrary power is going to be there, individual liberties are going to get protected or going to get supported. So please understand, these are all the synonym of what all 3 points that we have already gone through. So supremacy of the law, equality before the law, predominance of the legal spirit, these are all the important points that can be associated with the Avidice's rule of law, which I have already written. Equality before the law, absence of arbitrary power, respect for individual liberties, these are all considered to be the basic principles of Avidice's rule of law. Based upon Avidice's rule of law, we can proceed further of understanding more about constitution and constitutionalism. So student, in today's session, I have gone through the basic understanding of constitution and constitutionalism. There is one WhatsApp number of mine. You can ask question over here. 8800112857. That's 57. So you can ask question over here. But please never call. It's a WhatsApp number alone. I never pick call onto this number. Never call and never expect the faculty is going to answer you instantaneously. Drop your question. Whenever I'll be going to have a time, I'll be going to discuss with you. What type of question you can ask? Any question related to GS paper 2 and paper 3, you can ask. Any question related to your overall preparation ideals, any question related to your career advice, any question related to your overall preparation, you can always ask me. But do not expect that I'm going to answer it instantaneously. Whenever I'll be going to have a sufficient time, then only I'll be going to respond. So that's it for today's session. Sunday is going to be off for your session. I'm going to have one academic session with you from Monday onwards. So in this manner, I'll be going to proceed ahead with the Indian Polity and Constitution section. I hope you've learned something substantial today, difference between constitution, constitutionalism and rule of law, and some correlative input that I've shared with you. That's it for today's session. I'll see you on Monday.